All right, welcome to the Pleasant Planning Commission for November 8th at 7 p.m. We welcome everyone here. We have a large group tonight. We're grateful to see all of our participants. As the City Council recently passed changes, we no longer allow participation via video. You certainly are free to watch via video, and the links and so forth are there. But for those that would like to participate, the only way to do so is to be present in the room with us. So for anyone who would like to participate, please come. Right now we're in the Rumlard Conference Center, not at City Hall. But for those of you that are here, if you would like to participate, you need to provide a card, speaker card, over to on my right side over here, your left, to Estella and Paul, to make sure we get you into the queue. So we're grateful to everybody here. Thank you. So I'm going to call to order. Let's do Pledge of Allegiance. I neglected to ask someone to do it, so I will do it, and then we'll do roll call. All right, thank you, everyone. Paul, are you doing it? Estella, who's doing it? You're going to do it? Okay, you want to roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Okay, Commissioners Gatos. Present. Jane.
Present.
Mohan.
Yes.
Morgan.
Here.
Wedge.
Here.
And Chair Pace.
Present. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with any agenda amendments. Do we have any agenda amendments?
There are no amendments to tonight's agenda.
All right, thanks, Director Clark. Okay, so consent calendar is the first item up. Consent calendar items that are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion unless a request for removal by a member of the public or by a member of the Planning Commission requests it. Do we have any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker cards for this item.
Okay, are there any parts of the consent calendar that a member of the Planning Commission would like to discuss? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that looks unanimous. So the consent calendar is approved. So we're going to move on to item number 3, which is the meeting open to the public. So for meeting open to the public, these are items you are free to speak on to this body that are not currently on the agenda. If you would like to speak to an item that is on the agenda, which would be 4, 5, and 6 there on the calendar, the Stone Ridge Mall development, the Santa Rita Road, or the housing element update, you will do that when we get to those items. So this is for things not related to that. If you would like to speak on one of those items, we would invite you to do so. So let's see if we have any speaker cards. Estella, do we have any for this one?
We do. We have 2. First up is Joe Chalinsky. Can you please step up to the podium?
Okay, so let's just do order. Sir, if you've got a card, can you just make sure she gets it over there? I don't want to lose you. So it's a full room, and so the protocol we're going to have for tonight is each speaker gets 3 minutes. An applicant for a specific item, when we'll get to those things, we'll get more time. But for now, 3 minutes. So please go ahead, sir. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm not entirely clear on how tonight's agenda item regarding the vesting tentative map and last week's zoning administrator review fit together. But my comment is specific to the decision from last week. But it's on the line item regarding the Santa Rita property.
So let's have you speak then on the Santa Rita property when we get to that. So that'd be item 5.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have Chris Seaver.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Chris Seaver, and I'm a field representative for the NorCal Carpenters Union at Local 713 in Alameda County. Tonight, I'd like to touch base on labor standards language in construction. A few of our core values are local hiring, apprenticeship opportunities, and healthcare. All 3 of these are very important parts of the construction worker and their families' lives. Did you know that 50% of California's construction workers rely on some form of public assistance so they can provide health care to their families? Statistics show that 26% of construction workers in California lack health insurance. That's 2.5 times the rate for all California workers. The lack of health care has become the main factor keeping workers away from the construction industry, which is causing labor shortages. I've experienced working for companies that don't offer health coverage. Multiple trips to the ER become very expensive and take up numerous hours of sitting and waiting to be seen. As a husband and father of 3, there's no better feeling than knowing if one of my loved ones is having a medical issue, we're covered. Since I joined the Carpenters Union 10 years ago, that's been a weight lifted off my back. Apprenticeships are such an amazing opportunity. Where else can you work while learning and being trained for a lifelong career without acquiring any student debt? I am an apprenticeship grad who went into the trades knowing the bare minimum. I was able to go to a job site and use the skills I learned in the apprenticeship, which allowed me to earn good wages and give my family health care. They are an escalator into the middle class. Tens of thousands of Californians are being trained every year at no cost to taxpayers. Apprenticeships develop a pool of skilled labor. Local hire is also important. As I'm very familiar with commuting a minimum of 2 hours a day for work, not only would it reduce carbon emissions, it gives the construction workers an opportunity to be a part of their community and be more present with their families. I hope that the language I've spoken about tonight resonates with you all and we're able to implement it into the future construction projects and work with developers to make this a standard in the construction industry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing those facts and statistics with us.
We have one more, Tom Sanson.
Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks. I'm here to have a question answered because I'm a little confused still about the issue of the schoolyard on Burnell and First Street. That property is up for, is it rezoning? Is that correct?
It's part of the, it's part of
And
the,
I'm confused about what is the property. What encompasses the 10.68 acres?
10.68. I think he's talking about Neil, maybe?
Yeah, it's not the park next to it. It's the,
No, I'm talking about the playground, the upper sports field.
that's gonna be left alone.
Excuse me?
That's gonna be left alone.
That's not in scope for the
Oh,
rezoning.
well, yeah, that's what, I was just here to confirm that
Yeah.
because I think I talked to Eric about that last summer, and he said that the upper field was not involved in the zoning for housing.
It's not part of the housing element, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
We don't have any other speaker cards.
It's not in scope for now. Yeah. Okay, do we have any other cards?
No other speaker cards for
Okay.
item 3.
Great, so we're going to close the meeting to the public, which is item 3, and we're going to move on to item 4. So I did see a couple extra people come in. Let me just run through this again. We will invite speakers at each of these elements. I'll tell you when that will be. If you would like to speak, you need to provide a card over to the right side to Estella and to Paul over in the corner over there, and we'll limit comment accordingly as we get to those items. So let's move on to item number 4, which is the Stone Ridge Mall development. This has been, Eric, are you doing this one? Okay. So this has been something that's come before us multiple times in multiple different situations. There's been a joint city council planning commission meeting on this in the past. And so this is a very narrow piece of what overall is planned there. And so we certainly would welcome your comments, but this is not a wholesale re-examination of everything that's been done on that property over the course of the last several years. So we'll start with that. Eric, do you want to pick it up and have us go? Okay.
Sure, thank you, Chair Pace. Good evening, and good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Tonight, the Commission is being asked to consider making a favorable recommendation to the City Council on an application by Simon Property Group, which proposes to amend and extend the Stone Ridge Shopping Center Development Agreement, or DA, governing a previously approved approximately 363,000 square foot shopping center expansion for a period of 1 year, with a city manager option to extend the DA for an additional year, subject to the completion of performance standards that are set forth in the Fifth Amendment document. As described in the agenda report, the DA was initially approved by the City Council in 1992. Subsequently, the council approved 4 prior amendments between 1998 and 2021 for various reasons, which included the establishment of a sewer capacity agreement for the shopping center, the establishment of on-site parking ratios, various time extensions, among other things. The most recent amendment in 2021 extended the life of the DA to the end of this year, 2023. For more detailed information on all the prior amendments, please feel free to see the background section of the agenda report. Since the last extension of the DA, which was approved again in 2021, the effects of the pandemic have continued to affect the overall retail and commercial development market. And although there has been some recovery, it is yet to be complete. The applicant has indicated they need additional time to evaluate these changes in the retail climate and how to best proceed with the expansion of the shopping center to remain competitive and meet current market demands, which have evolved over the past several years and in their opinion have also most likely shifted again post-pandemic. Thus, this current amendment requests the term of the DA to be extended again for another year to December 2024, plus a city manager option to extend the DA for 1 additional year until December of 2025. Given the passage of time since the DA was originally written, the city has asked for and the applicant has agreed to complete a series of performance milestones related to the Stone Ridge Mall framework, which include that any development pursuant to the DA is subject to the current city development impact fees and other fees offset by prior payments for traffic improvements, that the objective design standards, or ODS, adopted in January of 2023 would be applicable to any framework residential or mixed-use projects on the site. The section regarding transfer or assignment of the DA has been amended to provide for city approval. And finally, a new provision for the applicant to reimburse the city for the cost of any environmental review and consultant work on the Stone Ridge Mall framework process. Staff notes that the proposed Fifth Amendment does not allow for any additional development beyond that already identified in the original DA and requires that all new commercial projects be subject to Planning Commission design review and approval administered at a public hearing. Additionally, residential development permitted by the 4th, 5th, and 6th cycle housing elements are not part of this DA and would be subject to the ODS and process approval set forth in the city regulations. For more information, you can please see Exhibits A and B, which include the full versions and more details of the proposed Fifth Amendment and the existing agreements respectively. To summarize, this DA extension will enable the applicant to continue to explore commercial expansion of the Stone Ridge Shopping Center, broadening the city's tax base and allowing the continued vitality of the shopping center. This DA amendment would not alter or modify the obligations and responsibilities described in the original DA or subsequent amendments as they apply to the shopping center, except in ways that are in benefit to the city, such as requiring the project to pay current development impact fees. With expectations of the completion of the outlined Stone Ridge Mall framework milestones, which are included in the amendment, staff believes the shopping center will continue to evolve and remain competitive in the current development environment. Thus, staff supports the request for the Fifth Amendment extension to the DA and recommends that the Planning Commission provide a favorable recommendation to the City Council pursuant to the language provided on this slide. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so we'll start with, so just, again, there's lots of new faces in here, so let me just run through this. So the way this will start is the Planning Commission will ask questions they may have. Then we will open it up for questions to the public using the speaker cards. Then we're going to close the question and answer, and then the Planning Commission will have a discussion and they'll make a ruling. Okay, that's the same process we always use, and that's the one we'll follow here. If the applicant, obviously, we would invite to make statement two if they would like when we get to that point. But let's start with any questions the commission members may have. Maybe I'll start with the first one, which is we have previously discussed at City Council, the joint meeting and other places, that there's a master plan associated with the development, and we've done a lot of work on that with the community members. We had a workshop maybe it was a year or so ago, I recall, and jumping around different rooms. virtually and so forth, where we work through that. Does this amendment impact the master plan and the timing for that and what's required for that?
If anything, we believe that the amendment actually incentivizes the applicant and the additional property owners out at the mall to move the process along a little quicker. There's definitely provisions included in there that give them some leeway in terms of requesting another one-year extension, provided they can meet some of these milestones. So if anything, again, it incentivizes them to move the framework process along in a little more expedient fashion.
Thank you. So there, as I recall, there were 4 property owners that own bits and pieces of the mall. I don't understand exactly, but one building is owned by someone, whatever. And this is just one of the 4 applicants that's doing this. Does this change somehow the ownership rights or whatever of the other owners, or is this just based on what the contract reflects?
No, it doesn't change any of the ownership, current arrangements. Simon is, the DA agreement is with the Simon Property Group, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the predominant property owner at the mall. So, everything would continue status quo in terms of ownership arrangements. I don't know if there's any additional information on that
Okay.
from anybody, but.
All right. Okay, let's open it up for questions. I usually start on my right with Commissioner Honorog, Jane, so I'm going to start with my left this time and throw him a curveball. Commissioner Morgan?
I just have one question that I asked earlier, but just for the benefit of other people in the room. I was thinking about traffic earlier, and my understanding is that the traffic analysis that was done last year as a part of the housing element also reflected the potential of extra traffic for this commercial development should it happen later on. And so all of our analysis already account for that, and we wouldn't be surprised by incremental traffic beyond what we'd already studied. Could you just confirm that? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I believe that analysis was baked in already to the
Okay.
housing element, correct.
Okay, just wanted to level set with everyone else, but thank you. That's the only question I have.
Thanks, Ken. Commissioner Mohan?
Thanks. To the extent that we can in a public setting, so what has been the additional ask from our side of the developer to give them this 1 or 2 year extension? Thanks.
Sure. So assuming council approves this amendment, the applicant would obtain a 1-year extension by default. The additional incentives would be for another 1-year extension, provided they meet some of these milestones. Again, the city has built some of these provisions in that include, because the agreement was written back in the 90s, our development impact fees were less substantial, I think would be a proper way to say that. So this would allow the city to recoup costs through current development impact fees as one measure. It also gives the city approval rights to, if should Simon decide to sell their interest in the mall, to be able to approve the transfer of the agreement. Sorry, 1 second. It also makes future development required to follow our current ODS that was just recently adopted, which is also a great provision for providing continuity and a good design fabric out there at the mall, cohesive design. And then the kind of the big ticket item would be the city's ability to recoup costs for environmental work performed as part of the Stone Ridge Mall framework.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks. Vice Chair Gatos?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Jane, please.
Thank you, Chair Pace. So I believe the same developer came to us with a housing project, and we know that hasn't started yet. And we're assuming that in next 2 years, some magic is going to happen with this project, given the commercial real estate market. I want to hear, first of all, whether it's a question for you or maybe for the applicant, what's going on with the project which we all rooted for and tried to get it approved for the residential, and is there any timeline or any sort of progress on that?
Well, sorry, so just to be clear, the housing application discussion that we had, that's unrelated to this request, correct? Okay, so I just want to be clear, just so for the record, that as I'd mentioned before, within the community, there's multiple different things happening at the mall. This is about the agreement between the four and what kind of commercial activity they're going to do. There is a separate set of activities going, and that was why I asked about the master plan that's related to housing that they would also put at the mall, which we're required to do, and they have an interest in doing. And so Commissioner Jane is asking about an update on the housing piece of that to one of the sections that's been proposed. Okay? All right, go ahead.
Sure. Yes, Commissioner Jane, as you correctly pointed out, back in January, the Stone Ridge Mall apartments were approved at the southeast corner of the mall property. The applicant continues to pursue permits for that. They have not submitted for plan check yet. My understanding is they're working on their permit package to submit for permits. In terms of timeline, I don't have an updated timeline for you, but I would imagine that'd be forthcoming fairly soon.
And the second question regarding the current market conditions and how the commercial market is going. Do we feel or does the applicant feel the 2 years time frame will see some starts or some progress? And we have put milestones and some incentives.
Sure. So, I don't think that obviously staff or the applicant have a crystal ball to see what the economic recovery is going to look like 1 year, 2 years down the road. I think that the hope is there will be some recovery. There's been some positive steps in the right directions post-pandemic. So, I think this gives them some breathing room to really evaluate applicants or potential projects that could come along out there. But again, they have not shared with us that they have any kind of savior project at this point in time. So this is, I think, simply breathing room for them to be able to really evaluate where the market's at, where the trends are at, and see if they can find a way to fill some of those voids in the next 2 years. I don't think that we can promise you that they won't come back and ask for a Sixth Amendment and additional time, but we've built in some city favorable provisions into this amendment that, if nothing else, the city gains a little bit more of a favorable position in negotiations with the applicant on some of these things.
Okay, thank you. Sure. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wedge?
None at this time.
Okay. Okay, so do we have applicant here that would like to speak? Okay, hi, welcome back.
Hello.
Good
Hi
to see
there.
you.
Nice to see you.
Let's give her 10 minutes, please.
Okay, I hopefully won't take 10. I'm Cecily Barclay, and I'm here for Stone Ridge Properties, the owner of the mall. It's about 60% of the property when you include the Sears building that Stone Ridge owns, as well as some of the parking lots and all the developed area. I just did want to clarify, in January, we were here supporting the housing element and the framework components, but the actual 360-unit project that we brought forward was actually approved in April. It would have become, it's okay, it would have become final in May, but we did have a threat of litigation from a labor union that came up at the city council meeting, so we spent some months getting that settled, and it was settled in July. And so in real time, it's only November, and so that's a really short period of time in the development world. So we got it approved, and I just don't want there to be some sense that we're about to submit plans, but I concur with what Eric said, that they're looking at costs and moving past the design approvals into construction drawings and really trying to get their arms around what the costs are now, with labor being what it is, because there's so much construction going on in other fields, infrastructure and the like, as well as interest rates and insurance costs and the like. And separate and apart from tonight, staff has been asking that very same question at all levels, and we're just continuing to evaluate that. Simon is, and they could build it themselves. We could partner with a housing builder, but it really is a bigger part of what to do with the rest of the mall. And so there are the 6 other housing opportunity sites, 3 of which Simon owns and 3 of which are owned by the other 3 owners. And since July, over the summer, have been taking a pause, evaluating the market. It's a rough time. That's the truth. And, but we do hope that we'll be working on these milestones. I've been talking with the other property owners. There's a lot of work to be done, and we hope to move that along. We made a lot of progress last year, and we'll be reporting back not only at the end of the year, but we have to start, we're going to have meetings in March, and then the city manager actually under this extension will just be making an assessment of performance starting on June 1. So it's not going to be a whole year. And if anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fire away. Hang on, we have a question for
So
you.
quick question. You said there was alignment with the labor, with the unions?
Yes.
Okay, and that, all set? Okay, good,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. All right, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker cards were received for this item.
Okay, I'm going to pause. Did anyone mean to speak on this item that's in the room? Okay. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing or public comment portion of the hearing on this item, and we can turn to a discussion. So I started with Commissioner Morgan last time, so I'll start with Commissioner Wedge this time. Any comment on item 4? Okay, thanks. Commissioner Jane?
I think it's a right thing to do. Like, we need some milestones, some timeline, so appreciate that 1-year checkpoint. So I feel we should really evaluate after a year. It also gives city some time, not just the developer. So appreciate that. Yep. Again, unrelated to this project, but can't wait to see the housing project start. So we'll be talking about that in future, I guess. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Vice Chair Gatos?
I guess my only comment is, this is an issue from long ago that presupposed that there was going to be different commercial activity at the Stone Ridge Mall since the 90s and until 2023. Everyone in this room knows a lot of things have changed. The goal line and ground seems to be rapidly shifting from under our feet. And there was ideas to put a gym and a movie theater and a mall there. Then COVID hit, and that was no longer really viable. Now there's a big residential development going in there that half the town showed up and didn't want. So they're going to have to do what's best for them at that property within the law, and that's what we're here to assist with, just to make sure things are in the best interest of the city. But I'm prepared to support staff's recommendation. I don't think it's even remotely controversial at this point. So.
Okay, thanks, Vice Chair. Commissioner Mohan?
Is it okay to ask a question of the staff at this
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
Okay, all right. So we do have a senior staff member who goes out to companies and tries to get people to move to Pleasanton, yes? Is there any work going on with the Stone Ridge Mall property owners jointly to try and get some of the tech companies into Pleasanton? So are we like trying to help to get work and jobs inside Pleasanton with these guys? Do we know?
That's not something that the city is actively pursuing at this time. I think there's a lot of work still to be done to figure out the right land use mix at the mall, and that may include office and space for those kind of employers, different kinds of retail. So we're expecting that to be really fleshed out in the master plan process, and I think thereafter would be a good time to sort of think about, how do we attract potentially business and investment to those uses as they're entitled.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Mohan. Commissioner Morgan?
I don't have any concerns about extending this agreement as proposed.
Okay, thank you. So I'll make my comments and then we can entertain a motion. So again, just for sake of clarity, because I do see a lot of folks in the room and presumably online as well that this may be new to. So remember that the mall is a significant portion of the, consumer engine for our city. It is probably not as busy as any of us would like. And so there's been a lot of activity over time to try to figure out what can be done at the mall to make it more commercially viable. Among other things, you know, the BART station is there. You've seen a lot of buildings go up around it. 10X Genomics is now there, and there's other things like that. So what you've heard from some of the commission members tonight and otherwise is thinking about holistically what to do with that site. It's a valuable site to our city. It's obviously a valuable site to the owners. It obviously, anything we do there is going to have an impact to the neighbors. And so you've seen extensive meetings, many dozens of hours of meetings with the community to try to get feedback about what to do, how to do it, what makes the most sense for our city, balancing the various different needs that our city has there. So there's more work to come on that. This is simply an extension to an agreement between, you know, the commercial owner, one of the landowners and the commercial owner of some of the property there around some of the timelines to do certain things as they figure some of that out. There's going to be a lot more opportunity to comment and a lot more opportunity to get feedback from all of you as those things come forward. So please be sure to watch and comment, especially around the time of the master plan when that comes back. But for now, that's where we're at. So most people seem to be nodding their heads yes at me or sleeping, so I think we've got this covered. So we're going to, let's go to a motion.
I'll move to approve the conclusions and recommendations as listed on the slide that's up in front of us now.
I'll second.
Okay, it seems like it's going to be unanimous, so let's just do a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Huh? Seconded was Commissioner Jane. And then it was unanimous. Okay, so I'm going to close item 4. Item 5 is Santa Rita Road. So let's just, again, there's lots of people here, so let's just ground on this for a minute. So recall that over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of work done by the Planning Commission around development within the city. And one of the things that the Planning Commission and the City Council had to do, looks like we're getting a new planner. Welcome. Glad to have you here. One of the things the city had to do is designate certain areas under the state mandated requirements for more dense zoning in the city. We had to designate certain sites that were going to be more dense. The city is required to do that by the state. And so that's what the housing element has been all about. And so one of the sites that is now designated as more dense is the site that we're about to talk about. So the discussion that has been had for the last couple of years about what those sites were and how dense they're going to be, we'll talk a bit more about that in number 6, but this is one of the sites that is going to be more dense in the city. The state has mandated we get to choose the sites, but there weren't that many to choose from, and so we've done the best we can. But this is one of those sites. So discussion, we will welcome any and all comments, but the reality is that site is going to change in the city as the other 20 are likely as well. Okay, so let's start with that. Are you gonna roll? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Get closer.
Good evening, Chair
That's
Pace
better, yeah.
and Planning Commission. The next item before you is the vesting tentative map for the Harmony condominium project located at 2025 Santa Rita Road. The application P230605 is for a vesting tentative tract map 8676, which is a single lot subdivision for the purpose of creating 42 condominiums and common areas. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission make the tentative findings as stated in the staff report and adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2023-15 approving vesting tentative map 8676, subject to the draft conditions of approval stated in Exhibit A. As the chair just stated, this site is designated for housing in the 2023 to 2031 six-cycle housing element. And on October 30th of this year, the zoning administrator approved P230332, which is the design review component of this application. That design review application is to demolish an existing motel and construct a housing development consisting of 42 three-story townhome-style condos ranging in size from approximately 1,400 square feet to 2,100 square feet and perform related site improvements at 2025 Santa Rita Road. The zoning administrator also took action on the CEQA, which I'll discuss in greater detail in this report, and recommended that the Planning Commission approve the vesting tentative map. The design review approval was based on findings of consistency with the city's adopted objective design standards and housing element sites and other applicable objective standards set forth by the city. Here's an aerial photo of the site. You can see the site in red. It is an existing 1.96 acre site that's part of a larger 2.3 acre site that's identified in the housing element as Site 16. The discrepancy in acreage accounts for the Lockhart Lane right-of-way, which would be dedicated to the city as part of this project. The site currently contains the Tri-Valley Inn and Suites, which is a 34-room motel. There's an in-ground pool, offices, and parking on site, as well as Curry Cravings, which fronts on Santa Rita Road. As you can see in this photo, to the north and west, there are single-family residences, as well as across Santa Rita Road to the east. To the southwest and southeast, there are townhomes and apartment homes. And to the south, there is the Mission Plaza, which is a commercial business development. The applicant has submitted a vesting tentative map to convert the approximately 1.96 acre site into one lot for condominium purposes with 42 townhome condominiums and common areas for internal streets, open space, and bioretention areas. A vesting tentative map confers a vested right to proceed with development in substantial compliance with the ordinances, policies, and standards in effect at the time an application for a map is deemed complete. Some more details about this map include a homeowners association that would be established that would own and maintain the common area parcel. Additionally, the map dedicates approximately 2-foot public access easement along Santa Rita Road and Lockhart Lane frontages and over the internal streets. The map also dedicates an approximately 6-foot public access service easement to the city along the Santa Rita Road frontage and a 7-foot public access easement along the Lockhart Lane frontage, and as I previously stated, would also dedicate the entirety of Lockhart Lane to the city. Review of a tentative map is limited to reviewing its consistency with the approved design review project and compliance with state mandated findings in the MAP Act. And collectively, the project as conditioned would allow all of the requisite findings to be made for approval of the vesting tentative map. The map is consistent with the design review project. At the October 30th, 2023 meeting, the zoning administrator found that the 2023 to 2021 six-cycle housing element update program EIR CEQA guideline section 15183 consistency checklist for the Harmony condominium project is adequate to serve as the CEQA documentation for this project and satisfy all the requirements of CEQA. The consistency checklist evaluation concludes the proposed project qualifies for an exemption from additional environmental review under section 15183 because it is consistent with the development density and land use characteristics established by the city as analyzed by the Housing Element Update FEIR. Further, the Housing Element Update FEIR adequately anticipated and described the impacts of the proposed project, identified applicable mitigation measures necessary to reduce project-specific impacts, and the proposed project would implement these mitigation measures via the adopted MMRP or Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program. The proposed vesting tentative map is consistent with the design review approval, and no new information or changed circumstances which require additional CEQA review have been identified. The project followed the required public notification requirements outlined in the Objective Design Standards, Pleasanton Municipal Code, and the city's on-site project notification guidelines. So an on-site project notification was posted on September 27th. A newspaper notice was provided, and a notice was sent to neighbors within a 1,000-foot radius of the project site. Staff received one comment for this Planning Commission item, which was forwarded to the Commission, that is concerned about density and guest parking of the project. The next steps for the project following this meeting regard the Affordable Housing Agreement. The Housing Commission first makes a recommendation on the Affordable Housing Agreement, and that meeting is tentatively scheduled for December 7th. And then the City Council takes action on approving the Affordable Housing Agreement, and this meeting is tentatively scheduled for January 16th of next year. Again, staff recommends that the Planning Commission make the tentative map findings as stated in the staff report and adopt P 23-2023 2023-15 approving vesting tentative map 8676, subject to the draft conditions of approval stated in Exhibit A. And staff's available for any questions should you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, questions, should we start with Ken again? Commissioner Morgan?
Well, first, I have a question, comment combined, and as background information, potentially for people in the audience here too, the housing element, once it was approved as required by the state, dictated that the city would be rezoning enough sites, locations, properties, so that developers would have the ability to build about 6,000 housing units in the city of Pleasanton over a 7 or 8 year period. And so that process occurred last year, and I believe there's 29 sites that are in the housing element. And for those 29 sites, this is one of them, the Tri-Valley Inn site. The city also was required to develop objective standards that basically dictated that if a developer met these objective standards, then the city is required to approve the project. And so this is one of those projects, and the City Planning Commission and the City Council has less ability to dictate the terms of how these projects will be built than for a typical project in the city. So that's something that you're going to probably hear about more tonight. And the one aspect of this that I wanted to ask about, just for the record, is if I was looking at a site and if I had discretion to recommend or approve for a site like this with 42 units, I would want to see more parking for visitors instead of just 2 or 3 sites. My understanding is that currently our objective standards only require 2 parking spots per unit, which would be the garage that all of these units would have, and that we don't have the authority in the Planning Commission or the city to mandate more parking for this site. So I just want to verify with the city that as much as I'd like to see more parking on the site, the Planning Commission, as I understand it, doesn't have the authority to request or require more parking. Is that correct?
That's correct. The project meets the standards of the Pleasanton Municipal Code and Objective Design Standards.
Yeah. So later on, or at the appropriate time, I may ask about whether we could review our objective standards for future projects, but that won't apply for this project. And so I would just say that overall, that's my one disappointment, is that we don't have more parking for visitors. Having said that, Tri-Valley Inn is old and maybe due for a new housing, and I think it's a pretty good site for a project to build housing in the city. There's just a few specifics like the parking that I struggle with. And that's my only question.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Commissioner Mohan?
For now, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Gatos?
No questions for now.
Commissioner Jane, please.
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Morgan said. So we have a set of objective design standards, and the state mandates these standards. So any developer can come in with a project, they can follow these standards and develop. So really today, in front of Planning Commission is not the design standards or the design of this project really for discussion. The only thing which is up for discussion today is the tentative map. So we probably had opportunity, like people probably had opportunity to comment. I see a lot of comments here by email. I believe they also came before zoning administrator made a decision. So a lot of authority is with zoning administrator in making decisions to approve such designs. We as Planning Commission are limited to the tentative map discussion today. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Wedge?
None at this time.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we're going to open it up to public comment. Do we have the applicant here that would like to make a comment? Yeah? Okay. 10 minutes, please. Come on up. Thanks for being here.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. First off, I just want to say thanks to Emily Carroll for the presentation and introduction, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. My name is Luke Morris, and I'm with City Ventures, and I'm excited to be here to present to you the Harmony Project on Santa Rita Road. Next slide. So just a brief overview.
Hang on,
of-
you need to get the microphone closer to your mouth. We're not able
Oh,
to hear
okay.
you.
Is that better?
Yeah, take us like a half step closer. There's people online who are having trouble hearing you.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, that's better.
So just a brief overview of City Ventures. We are an infill developer. So we focus on underutilized parcels in existing urban areas near transit to meet that large need of missing middle housing. We pride ourselves on being sustainable developers, meaning all of our homes, including the homes at Harmony, will come standard as solar all electric. We also have EV charging in all of our garages, energy efficient appliances, water efficient landscaping. The list goes on, but what's important is that all of these small things can add up and make a big impact on reducing our footprint in the environment. Next slide. So here are a few examples of some of the previous projects we've completed in California. You'll notice the variety of architectural types, and as infill developers, our goal is to complement the existing neighborhoods that we build in. And you know, we feel like we've had a lot of success doing so. Next slide. One more. There we go. So I just want to take some time to walk through the history of the project and sort of fill you in on what we've been working on over the last 2 years. So this project was kicked off in July of 2021 when we began our initial due diligence of the site and began our site assessments, and also engaged city staff in conversations. During those conversations, staff informed us that they were in the process of updating the 6th cycle housing element and objective design standards. And because this site is a housing element site, we both agreed that the best approach would be to wait until the housing element would be adopted. That way we could design a site plan that would adhere to all the design standards. So fast forward to 2023, the housing element, as you know, was adopted in January, and our first formal application went in March. Since March, we've worked very closely with city staff on 2 additional submittals. We've also submitted various environmental reports to meet the requirements of the CEQA consistency checklist. Next slide. So last month, both our application and our CEQA checklist was deemed complete, leading us to zoning administrator, which took place last Monday on October 30th, where we received approval on design review. And so that leads us to tonight, where we are kindly requesting your approval on the vesting tentative map. Next slide. So I know Emily had already presented some of the site details, but I just want to restate that this is a 1.9 acre site with an existing 34-unit motel. It's steps away from the 10-hour bus line. It's adjacent to the Mission Plaza, and it's very close to the Amador Valley Community Park. It's also within 1 mile of all the assigned schools, which include the Alice Hall Elementary, the Harvest Middle School, and Amador Valley High School. And so these are just some of the reasons why we feel like this is a great infill site. So as you were mentioning, a lot of work went into the city adopting the housing element and objective design standards for the site. So our goal is to create a vibrant community while also being 100% consistent with the design standards. We're also excited to be the first housing element site in Pleasanton and to be able to work with staff on designing a project under these new design standards. Next slide. So as you can see, the site is immediately surrounded by residential and commercial parcels. To the southeast, we have the Valley Plaza Villages, which are 2-story apartment homes. And then to the southeast, we have the Danbury Park development consisting of 2-story duplexes. Next slide. So because Santa Rita is a main thoroughfare, we really wanted to activate the street frontages by designing a thoughtfully thought out site plan that would not only enhance the visual appeal of the area, but also, add to the overall vibrancy of the neighborhood. Next slide. So we are proposing 42 homes that will be marketed towards first-time home buyers and individuals looking to grow their roots in Pleasanton. The homes will range from 1,400 all the way up to 2,100 square feet, and will each have their own private 2-car garage. So when we were initially studying various site plans, our goal was to design a site plan where residents could feel a sense of community with the vibrant open space. Next slide. One more, actually. And then one more. So we've designed this centralized open space that's going to be featured with barbecue and picnic areas, play structures, and we'll have a central oak tree. So since the start of COVID, we heard a lot of feedback that residents are looking for a place in their home to work from home. So we've designed 26 of the homes to come flexible with an office space, which will not only meet that new demand of the work from home model, but probably more importantly, reduce traffic counts in the area. So although the design review portion of the project has already been approved, we figured it'd be a good idea to show you some of the elevations of the project. Next slide. And then, there we go. So we use the ODS as sort of a jump-off point for the traditional craftsman-style architecture that we're proposing, which we feel is a nice, warm, and natural feel to it. The exterior elevations will incorporate a brick veneer, board and batten sidings. We've also incorporated mansard roofs with parapets and roof wells, which is intended to conceal and screen HVAC equipment and solar panels from the ground level view. Next slide. And then here is a partial streetscape of the Lockhart Lane, which is featured with that pedestrian trellis at the center of the screen, which will lead residents towards that central open space. And then finally, here are some conceptual photos of some of the hardscaping and landscaping features I talked a little bit about earlier. We understand that landscaping and hardscaping play a vital role in a project's overall livability and desirability. So, with incorporating some of these play structures, barbecue and picnic areas, our goal is to, foster a sense of belonging amongst all of our residents. So that concludes my my presentation tonight. Again, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Do we have questions for the applicant right now? No? Okay. All right, let's get to any other questions you might have in the audience. My sense from the motion in the room is that there are going to be a couple. So let's start. So we're going to set the timer for 3 minutes, please. Okay, who's up first?
So we had received speaker cards from Emmanuel Robinson and Dan Hill. Did you guys still want to comment? Okay.
No? Okay.
Okay, so Judy Casey, can you please come up to the podium?
Hello there, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So I've had a chance to share already how this is going to affect me personally at the October 30th meeting. So what I wanted to do was see what other people in Pleasanton thought about it. So I went to the Pleasanton Community Group on Facebook and put some information on there. And what I'd like to do is to share some of those comments with you tonight, just so we can hear what more people are thinking other than a few. So they pretty much all agree that this is a good site to do affordable housing, that we need that in Pleasanton. But what they didn't like was the fact that a builder can come in, a developer can come in and pay $2.1 million and sell them at market value. They didn't. They wanted some lower income housing here. That's what it was stated for, and that's what they really thought that should go on that site. Some of the comments were, these are their comments, not mine, doesn't fit the neighborhood. Wow. They are just going to turn Santa Rita into another Ray Street. This is not mine. 3 stories does suck. Will change the feel. Not my words. These condos are crammed on this lot. Look at Peter Street. Look at downtown. That's what it will look like. They need to make sure it doesn't end up looking like Dublin. This is going to stick out like a sore thumb. We need affordable housing that was planned to come to it, this project. It's insane that a developer can pay fees to just get out of the affordable housing. And there was a big debate between a couple of people on the height issue. It was hard to understand where they were going with that, but basically it's just too high. The other issue they also had was parking. They agreed that 2 guest parking spots is not enough. They said the spot is insufficient for 42 units. And they said that most people don't park in their garages. They use it for storage. And currently, there's not even any parking on Santa Rita. They will be parking at Mission Plaza because there isn't any place to park. Or one person said, and my neighborhood, wasn't me, there needs to be more parking. 2 guest parking spots is wildly insufficient.
Thank you. So you're at time.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I certainly welcome you to submit all those, into the record. If you want to forward the email to Paul and to Estella,
Anybody
that
can
would be
go
great.
to that site too. There's plenty more.
Okay, all right.
And just one last comment.
Okay.
My last comment is because I can embrace change when it makes sense, but this project doesn't make sense for this site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Okay, Brian Casey, can you please step up to the podium, please?
Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Hold on a sec, gotta get my glasses on.
All right,
Don't start that
I-
timer yet.
I
Don't
feel
start
ya.
it yet.
I feel ya.
Don't start it yet.
I feel ya.
I know I'm under the wire, but don't start it until I get these things on.
All right. All right, you ready now? We'll go with your first word. Okay.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about 2025 Santa Rita Rose. This is tough following the wife, but we'll get through it. I'm not opposed to development, refresh, modernizing the land to support first-time buyers or citizens in need of affordable housing. What I'm objected to is the density. The site has a range of 15 to 25. It's going in at 42. Parking, what else can I say? Yes, there's 2 spots per garage, but how many people use their garage to actually park their cars? Most people use it for 1 car. There's only 2 guest parking. The building heights, the final measurement will be 39 feet 6 inches. The developer is measuring it to the midpoint on the roof at 35.9. But the PMC code, I think it is 1880 something, states that the parapet has to be considered in the final measurement. So they're 3 feet 6 inches above or 42 inches above the height. The neighborhood fit. It doesn't fit, it's 3 stories. So when you look at the verbiage written across the state verbiage for the housing elements, it states, existing and projected demands for housing are adequately met. You look at our own, the city, it says understanding the needs of the community enables the development of housing strategies that are most appropriate and effective. And the key themes, engagement themes are, this is a general community of high-density development, maintaining community character, as cited multiple times as the reasoning for the opposition. It's not low income, you know, it's on the housing element list, but again, it's going out at market rate. So what are the goals? So what are your goals as the city people? What is the developers' goals, and what are the citizens of Pleasanton? So the city, you're addressing your housing element needs with a site identification to build it out, maintain and stay within budget, and collect fees. The developer, City Ventures, will develop the property, return a profit to City Ventures corporate, stay on budget and limit their fees, and complete on time. The citizens of Pleasanton, us, maintain an inclusive community, take pride in the city's services, schools, and safe neighborhoods. All three of those goals should be met for the community first and foremost. What's best for the citizens of Pleasanton and the overall community? Project Harmony does not fulfill all three. What are the accomplishments? The city of Pleasanton, what do you accomplish? You build out, you get your first development under the housing element. You collect $2.1 million in affordable housing fees, permit fees for building and hookup fees. POSD collects the school fees and that. What's the developer get? Surely, City Ventures profit expressions, less costs. There's less cost because it's a 1.93 acres. Hooking up sewer, streets, power, electricity, it's easy money. It's only 1.3 acres. It's not like miles and miles and miles.
All right, sir, you're at time, so finish up, please.
Finish up?
Yep.
All right. There's some comments out there on the public side of it. You can read it. Comments made through the Pleasanton Weekly, but pretty much the concern is parking, water, density. And my only ask is the developer has a single-family homes that are built in Santa Rosa, Grove Village. It has more units, but certainly they could consider putting single-family homes in there and reducing the number of units down to maybe 30, 15 per acre. Then you're at two-story, and it's more of a fit for the neighborhood versus a three-story building that's going to end up being 40 feet tall. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Who's next?
Angela Smith. Okay, there's one more. Joe Chalinsky.
Welcome back, sir.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, my comment is specific to the decision last Monday, and I urge the council to review that decision as the zoning administrator incorrectly applied PMC 1884-140 to determine the height measurement under that provision. In its review of the Harmony project, the zoning administrator applied that code provision to measure the height of the project as defined for a gabled roof. However, the project plan includes both a gabled roof and a parapet, extending across all buildings. And where a parapet is present under PMC 1884-140, it explicitly requires that parapet be included in the measurement to its maximum height. That results in a 39.5-foot maximum, which is 3.5 greater than is allowed by the ODS. Including the parapet as required is greater than is allowed by the objective design standards. I think it's important for the Planning Commission to take up this review. As has been mentioned, we have 29 other sites through the 6 housing element, and we can expect that they will be developed with similar townhome complexes. And so it's important for the Planning Commission to clarify how that code is applied to avoid ambiguity, protect the existing residents, and also provide the necessary standards to the developers. A bit more detail on the code. So the ODS allows a maximum height for multifamily development of 36 feet per 1884-140. In its review, the zoning administrator applied the PMC provision to measure to the height of the roof to the mean height between the eaves and ridges because it's a gabled roof. But they did not include the parapet within the measurement. The PMC code 1884-140 explicitly states and requires the measurement to include the parapet to its maximum height. There's no room for alternative interpretations in this case. Applying the provisions as written necessitates including the parapet in the measurement and results in a max height of 39.5 feet for all the buildings in the project plan, which is greater than the 36-foot max allowed by the ODS and the PMC. So given the proper application of the PMC and the ODS codes for this site in particular results in a height calculation higher than is allowed by the ODS and requires the city to reject this plan under the ODS. I have a couple of seconds here. I'd just like to say that I like getting rid of the motel. I like adding housing in Pleasanton. I'm just not for the 40-foot buildings directly on the property lines with the single families right behind them, infringing on privacy, damaging the property values, and overall enjoyment of those properties as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Estella, do we have any more cards on this one?
Yes, Angela Smith.
Unfortunately, I missed the meeting last Monday, but I am one of the property owners on the back side, on the west side. And I had a couple of concerns I don't see in the plans. So I do see that they're going to remove all the trees. So I lose all of that privacy. And on my particular property, the plan is that there's going to be 8 units. So I'm going to have 8 units staring at the back of my house and my backyard and my pool. I lose the entire privacy for my entire backyard, so there my property value is going to go down. No one's going to buy that property for the backyard, which is half of my property. But all the trees are getting cut down. There's walnut trees, there's other trees back there, but also it says there's redwood trees. Are the redwood trees on my property going to be cut down? It doesn't specify, but I don't see any redwood trees on that actual parcel, so I want that declared. I don't know how to get that into the. And then the other problem is that I don't see in the plan is the wall replacement. So when I contacted the city manager several years ago, I was told that that wall is owned by the motel owner. The motel owner would not do anything to replace that wall. It's crumbling and falling down. But I don't see anything in the plan saying that that wall is going to be replaced or rebuilt. That's a huge concern, because you're putting brand new properties on the other side, you're beautifying everything, redoing, you're taking out all of the large trees that are on that wall between the houses that are behind it and this new development. I mean, Pleasanton takes pride in our trees. Why are we tearing down all the trees on this property? These are huge walnut trees. I don't understand that part of it. Maybe that falls under zoning also. And then I just worry about the school overcrowding also. It's a huge problem already. I mean, I have kids in all 3 schools that are in this area, Alisal, Harvest Park, Amador Valley. They're all overcrowded, and now we're going to add more. And I do disagree with the height. It does not going to fit in with this area at all. It's going to stick out like sore thumb. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No other speaker cards were received. Does anyone else have any cards for this item? Okay.
Does the applicant want to stand up and address any of the questions that came in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I know there are a couple of different topics, but I'll start off with the last comment about the trees. And so a part of our application submittal, we submitted an arborist report, which I think should be uploaded to the planning website.
Yeah, all of the plan materials and environmental documents are uploaded on the city's major projects webpage.
And so that report will list all of the trees that are planned to remain or are planned to be taken down. What I can say about the trees on that western property line, we plan on planting additional screen trees on both that property line as well as 24-inch box trees in the bioretention areas along the northern property line. The type of trees are not finalized right now. They'll be finalized in construction documents, but right now we're proposing evergreen trees. And then in regards to, I know there's a lot of comments in regards to parking. So in one of the environmental reports that we submitted a traffic report. And a part of the report was, and I won't really get into all the details, but a part of the report is to lower the traffic counts from the existing development to the new development. And so, with adding additional parking, that would actually increase our traffic counts in the area and therefore not complying with our CEQA checklist. And then in regards to the building height, we actually have our architect here today, and I think he might be able to explain it a little better than I can, so.
Can you, before I bring the architect up, can you just speak to the wall? There was a specific question about the wall. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, so we will be putting an additional 6-foot block wall along that property line.
The entire length?
Yep.
Okay. The architect want to come up and speak to that, please? Thank you.
Good evening. Am I okay with the microphone?
How are we doing?
I'm
Can you hear
tall.
him okay?
I fall-
Yeah? Okay, all right, you're good. Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Hale with Hunt Hale Jones Architects. Pleased to be in front of you. Not that it makes a big difference, but I was a longtime resident of Pleasanton. I grew up here. Went to school at Walnut Grove, Alisal, Harvest Park, graduated from Amador. So it's nice to have the opportunity to come back and provide housing for a community that is growing and wants to encourage people to move here and have affordable housing for people, first-time buyers. I can understand how measuring the height is confusing to many people. We talk about a maximum height of 36 feet, but it's not the maximum height of the building, whether it's our homes here at Harmony or whether it's homes in the past that have been before you. We followed all of the city guidelines on how to measure the height, and it's to the midpoint of, we talk about the plate or the beginning of a sloped roof and the top of that roof. And there was a discussion about the parapet. It's really just the cap to the top of the roof. It's not a normal parapet, as most people refer to a flat roof with a parapet. So this diagram shows you the different calculations of our building that we take from the lowest point of the grade, which is the drive aisle, which is to the left, or excuse me, to the right of this diagram. And you'll see that we call it the plate height where the sloped roof starts and where it ends, and we pick the midpoint of that, and that's about 35 feet. The maximum height is 36. I think the gentleman that spoke before is talking about, he talked about the parapet. It's just the detail at the top of the roof. We can eliminate that and just roll it over the top if that's a critical point. But we are conforming to all of the guidelines by the city. So I hope this diagram helps to explain. You take the midpoint of the sloped roof, and that's the height measurement. This is not new. This has been how Pleasant has measured the height for a long, long time. We're not reinventing the wheel or trying to do something that's new and hasn't been seen before. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if this isn't clear for planning commissioners on how height is measured.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Does this apply specifically to multifamily or even single families measured the same way?
Yeah, thank you. So single-family residences are also measured the same way. For sloped roofs, the measurement is to the midpoint of that sloped portion.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Might not sound very intelligent, but why do we measure it to the midpoint? I mean, the roof goes to wherever it goes. So why do we measure it to the midpoint?
It's a standard that's been on the books for many years, decades, for the city of Pleasanton. It may come in part from the fact that if you require sloped roof heights to be measured to the top, to the peak, you end up with sometimes some odd looking, discourages people to do peaked roofs. You end up with many more flat roof buildings or very much sort of squatter looking roof forms. So it's a way to provide better design by providing more flexibility. You can also see in the diagram that sloped roofs recede, so they come, they go backwards. So the tallest part of the roof is usually multiple feet back from the face of the building. That helps to mitigate the sense of height. So that might be another rationale for the midpoint approach.
I'll have questions afterwards.
Okay. Okay, any more questions now? Okay, we're going to close. Any final last call for questions from the public?
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I understand that it's longstanding to do to the midpoint for a gabled roof. But where there's a parapet, the PMC is explicitly required to measure to that max height. And if you go back, yeah, right here, because they have the rooftop mechanicals here, that parapet is required per the ODS. And so they can't actually just wrap that because they have mechanicals on the top. They have to have that parapet there. And so that parapet is necessitated by the project plan, and under the PMC, it's required to go to the max height of that parapet. It's not an interpretation thing, it is the explicit language of the PMC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Did you have a comment card? Okay. Yeah. Can you just, Pat, just so we have it for the
Yes.
record, can you just pass it over to her? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. I'm Samantha Hauser with City Ventures with the applicant. I'm the head of development for our company. And I just wanted to give a little bit of insight into why we selected a mansard roof. One of the benefits of this roof style, because we are solar all electric, is it takes the things that are supposed to be back of house, HVAC units that you sometimes see in patios, and solar panels that you can see on gables, and it puts them in a position where they can't be seen. If that's something that feels obtrusive or feels like it is confusing, as Dan Hale, our architect, mentioned, we're happy to bring those things down into a more visible realm. But we picked this for the aesthetic purposes, and, you know, we're happy to do whichever way the city sees fit.
Okay, thank you. Last call. Okay, I'm going to close the public comment portion. So now, you know, as I talked about before, but for everyone who's new or maybe wasn't listening, we'll have a discussion amongst the planning commissioners, and then there will be a vote or not a vote, depending on how this proceeds. So let's start, I think I started with Ken last time, so let's start with Commissioner Wedge this time. Any comments here, Commissioner?
I'd like to see it lower. However, I don't like the mechanicals going on the ground. So I think it just, the measurement would be nice if it would end at the 36.5 rather than having the extra 4 feet or 4.
Okay, so maybe it's worth, Melissa, would you just give us a sense for, is it, Emily, you're going to answer? Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure. I saw Melinda nodding, and so I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going to Melinda for this one. Okay, Emily, can you help us? There is some question about kind of what the code requires and how this measures, and so let's just, since that's come up several times, let's just get some clarity there, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I will acknowledge that it is confusing, especially since we're working between the objective design standards, which also refer back to the Pleasanton Municipal Code. So as some of the commenters have said, the height limit is 36 feet for project sites with this density per the objective design standards. And the definition does refer back to the Pleasanton Municipal Code. I'll also note that for projects of this height, a sloped roof is required under the ODS with a slope of greater than a 312 pitch, and the project provides an 812 pitch. And the height limit measurement includes a couple different criteria for how roofs are measured depending on the roof type. So in this case, this is a sloped roof. I have another exhibit here that shows a flat roof with a parapet versus a sloped roof with a roof wall, with a roof well or parapet. There's some different language that gets floated around, although neither parapet nor roof well are defined by our municipal code. But you can kind of see the distinction here between a parapet, which extends, a wall that extends above the roof line for a flat roof, and a roof well, which creates a space for mechanical equipment with a sloped roof. So in this case, they've provided a sloped roof, which would be measured to the mean. So the project provides a maximum height per the municipal code of between, I believe it's 33 feet 10 inches to 35 feet 6 inches throughout the project site. And then on this exhibit, you can see the midpoint of the roof line. So between the midpoint and the eave, so that's the lower portion of the roof that projects above the top plate of the third floor, that is about 4.5 feet. So between the midpoint and the eave is 4.5 feet, and then as follows, the midpoint to the very peak of that slope is another 4.5 feet, which is how we arrive at the 39 feet, 39 and a half feet. So it does comply with the Pleasanton Municipal Code. It complies with the objective design standards, and screens the mechanical equipment as well, which is also required by the objective design standards.
Thank you. So Emily, just one thing maybe, there may well be developments that, you know, for the sake of architectural design or, you know, something else where someone may mix parapet with the sloped, you know, between, if you have multiple buildings kind of attached, you have one doing one thing and another doing another. Can you describe how the measurement is measured where you have a mix of something in a development?
Yeah, so it'd be per building. So we would look at the maximum height for each building under the objective design standards, and especially under the objective design standards for buildings that are taller than 40 feet, it does require kind of a variation of roof forms. And so I believe in that case, we would look at each section of the building to ensure that it was compliant with the height standards, in the same way that in this project, we're looking at each building to make sure that it's compliant with the maximum height standards.
Okay, so each building, irrespective of whether it's using a parapet or a sloped roof, under the assessment of the planners, they've looked at this, the zoning administrator, they've looked at this, and each one is consistent with the current requirements under the city municipal code?
Correct, and we're just using one building section as an example to illustrate the finer details of the municipal code.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, Commissioner Wedge?
Additionally, parking would be nice to see rather than just 2 parking spaces. I don't know how people are going to park on Santa Rita. You can't park. So that's a concern for me.
Okay.
Other than that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jane.
Thank you, Chair Pace. So I think there was a comment on market versus lower income. And I'm looking at what we kind of published at the time. In this, for this particular site, I think we did not consider the low income or moderate income in the calculations for our SCD.
Yeah,
So-
the housing element projected up to 46 above moderate units for this site. So they weren't part of our lower income inventory.
They were?
They were not.
Yeah, so just to clarify, when we looked at the inventory, this site was never considered for lower income housing. I heard some comments which gave an impression that it was. I do see some comments here in the packet, as well as some speakers talked about parking. Yeah, it's going to be challenging, but we are kind of bound by our objective design standards. So the right way to approach it is probably to review those, and consistency and standards are important. We can't just make decisions on the fly for every project. So that's some feedback at least I have heard very loud and clear, that there's some concern with the parking ratios. State also limits on how much we can do. In some cities, they're totally doing away with parking requirements. We're not there yet. Hopefully never will be, unless we don't need cars to travel. But that's the second point I want to address, that it's really not a gray area. It's very black and white. And probably the staff can just say, like, how much is the required as per the objective design standards? Is this project compliant?
For the parking standards? Yeah, the project provides 2 parking spaces per unit, which is required by the PMC, and then in exceedance of that requirement, they're providing 2 guest parking spaces.
Yeah, thank you. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Jane. Vice Chair Gatos?
I don't have a ton of comments. I shared sort of the frustrations and the feelings of the neighbors and the folks, especially the the homeowner behind with the pool that's going to have a, essentially 15 or so feet from the property line, have a large group of buildings behind it looking down in their backyard. And I'm hoping that as this goes forward, they can work with the developer on putting, shade trees and a block between there, because it's going to be an issue. The parking's going to be an issue. But these are things, and by way of background, the city was required, as comment was earlier, to zone for between 5,000 and 6,000 new housing units. We were given a short deadline. We were given at the same time the requirement of making objective design standards to increase housing, because the California legislature and the people that were elected to it have determined that there's a crisis of housing in California, and we need to build a ton more housing despite the fact that people are leaving this state in record numbers. So we were stuck with it, and the city did a lot in a short amount of time. And if we hadn't done it, there would have been even more interesting consequences to projects being put up without any input from the city. And if the folks in this room don't like the fact that there is only 2 parking spaces per unit here, just wait till there's a 40-unit building put downtown, and because it's a half a mile from the ACE train that nobody uses, they don't have to provide any parking at all. So if you don't like this, you're really going to not like that. I just hope it's not where you live. It is where I live, so I'm not going to like it. But that's where we are. So, this has been coming a long time. And for everyone in this room, Valley Plaza is also zoned to be residential as well. So that is going to be housing. Not dissimilar. I think that the density might be a little less, if I recall correctly, than it is at the Tri-Valley Inn next door. But there's going to be a lot of change. So all I can say is if there's frustration in the room, or there's frustration as this thing starts to happen, the city was put under a great deal of a quick deadline to get all of this done, and we've been amending. We've already amended the objective design standards at least once as these issues are up and coming. But this is all stuff mandated by the California legislature, the governor, who has funded a unit to enforce these and try to go find cities. So $3 million of your tax dollars or so was put into jobs for people to make sure we're doing this, if not to find the city and to take money out of our schools and our police department. So watch who you vote for. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner, Vice Chair Gatos. Commissioner Mohan?
I find myself in this very strange position today that, I entered politics or raised my hand for public service a couple of years ago after a lifetime of doing my stuff and not being engaged or interested in what was going on around me. But I raised my hand in part because I have 2 kids. You guys, some of you have kids, grandkids. And I wanted to do my part to make this place a better place for my kids and all of our kids. So they would stay in California, stay in Pleasanton, right, and not go far away from us. As part of that, I actually do support sensible increases in housing, right? So the state, gave us mandates, but I do think that our younger folks do need a little bit less expensive houses than what Pleasanton today provides. Having said that, here's what I'm struggling with this particular project. And I do hope that whether now or in the next few months, the developers do, even if they are not legally bound to, do the right thing and have some conversations with the folks whose property line abuts this particular lot. Because in the end, every home needs a happy neighbor. That's the only way we build a community, right? Otherwise, all we have is fights. And that's not the city I signed up for. So it might take, maybe, instead of making X percentage, might be X minus 2%, but that's something for you guys to figure out. But on the specific, there seems to be a disagreement. So, okay, I'll move on to the next point. there seems to be a specific disagreement on the fact. There's one person saying, here is the code, and here is the whatever code number which says that the parapets, whatever needs to be measured from the top, and we at the city are saying no. So do we have a legal opinion on this?
As the planning staff have described in the practice as we've measured it, so the measurement of the midpoint of the sloped roof is the way we've historically applied it. So that, I would say, is our legal opinion about the way in our practice of measuring for the height of the building.
Is it possible to have a conversation with folks who have a different view and just come to an alignment on that, or agree to disagree, like formally? Because there seems to be a difference upon the fact, right? There's one person who says that the objective design standards do not allow for it. We are saying they do. So is there a formal agreement or disagreement on this fact? Because what I also don't want is a fight, which goes on for months and quarters and years, and housing projects get delayed for no valid reason if they don't need to. So do we have can we do a formal agreement or disagreement on this point? Because I tell you, from a common sense perspective, it does seems to me that if a roof is 40 feet, well, that's what it should be measured, especially if it overlooks the neighbor's property, right? That, I think, is where there's a new nuance in this discussions. Before we had single family homes, all the same height, no one really cared. Now you're going to have townhomes overlooking a single family home. We have the same issue behind us. I mean, that's the question I asked Director Clark last time about the property right behind us. Ironwood is up in arms against the development by Alameda County, and they're putting the same houses overlooking the single-family homes in Ironwood. This issue will keep on coming up time and time again. I think it behooves us as a city to figure out what we need to do, because we also want happy house owners, right, in the community. So is that an action I can assign someone or request someone to figure out, or is that already decided?
It's been decided.
Okay.
And, staff, has properly interpreted the code. I don't think there's really a room for room for debate. But to the maybe to your point, if there's a desire to revisit the standard as it's written in the ODS, perhaps to be a little bit more restrictive, to perhaps change that standard so we're to remove, to make it more clear that in any circumstance it's to the peak of the roof, whether it's sloped or a parapet or midpoint, or, whatnot, that can be done, but it can't be done as part of this process. So I think that may be the opportunity, is to go back and revisit the objective standard and come up with something that feels like it will deliver a result, which is perhaps an overall lower building height. But this project conforms to the standards as it's written.
Got it. So and I think we will revisit the objective design standards. I believe we're going to do a review of them overall. I would request that we put the height issue specifically, because now it's come up twice in the past few months, where the existing homeowners have been complaining about the 3-story or the higher homes which abut their properties. And again, that's driven in part by the change in the design. No longer single-family homes, more crowded, taller homes, overlooking single-family homes. And that, if I lived in the behind, if you lived in the back, you would have the same issue too, right? Having made this point, I do want to also ask, does a 3 foot or 3 feet additional or lower height of the roof change anything for the homeowners behind, or is it just a legal thing that we're trying to figure out to stop the development? Because let's say the developer says tomorrow that the housing can go down by, I'm not talking to you.
Okay.
Not to the audience.
Okay. All right.
I'm learning.
All right.
I'm not supposed to address we're not supposed to address the audience, so we're supposed to talk here between ourselves. So I normally get my wrist slapped pretty often by chairperson here. Because if it doesn't really solve the problem, if by reducing it by 3 feet, there really is no additional or lower, incidence of sun or whatever, then I think we have a different conversation, which really requires the developer and the person in the back to have a separate conversation. So hopefully we have happy neighbors.
So what, just maybe kind of turning that into a question, what would be the, if we were to say you've got to lower the roof height by 4 feet, you know, without reopening the entire conversation, what is a developer likely to do in response to that kind of directive?
Okay, and I could maybe just add to broaden the question just a little bit. I think that the objective standard, Commissioner Pace, was 30 feet height limit until we revised the objective standards last year, November, December. And so I believe at that time it was raised from 30 feet to 36 feet because developers were saying that it was tough to build 3 stories without going up to 36 feet. So this is a new development. If we'd been looking at this same type of project a year ago, I believe the limit would have been 30 feet. So maybe it's a matter of doing kind of a look back after the project to ask ourselves whether there's
Yeah.
anything else we want to change in
Yeah,
the
so,
standard.
right, so to be clear, right, the objective design standards is what we have to decide whether or not this development conforms to it with respect to kind of listening to what staff has said, and that's, if we want to go back, look later and have modification to the objective design standards, that would impact future projects. It would not impact this one, to be certain. So those are things that we'll have to come back to. But maybe we should kind of wrap all of that into that discussion when we would get back to the objective design standards. We're not changing it now. We can't change it tonight. And so, we have a decision to make on whether or not this complies with the objective design standards, because that's the only question we have before us that we are empowered to rule on. So, Ken, Commissioner Morgan, did you have anything else?
I also have one more question.
Oh, okay, fire away with your last question,
right.
sorry.
So we did all this hard work, basically to get more affordable housing into the city, right? So the question now is if a developer pays us in lieu of affordable housing, do we get credit from the state for some affordable housing even if they don't build it because they paid us the money?
No, we only get credit for housing units that are permitted and built.
So so we've had this before where developers have come in and paid in lieu of, so we're now sitting on a pile of money. The vision of Scrooge McDuck diving through dollar bills comes to mind, but I'm sure it's not that big. But what do we end up doing? What does the city end up doing with that money? Since it doesn't count towards anything, ultimately we'd want to put it somewhere, so what do we do?
So historically, the city has used that money in a variety of ways. One of them is to contribute funds to affordable housing projects. A recent notable example is Sunflower Hill. So the city contributed some $5 or $6 million to support the construction of that project, and we've done that fairly often over time. We also use the money to support our housing programs, so helping folks stay in rentals, part of our first-time homebuyer program. So there's a number of different ways in which we support affordable housing in the community, including some construction, mostly as seed money or matching funds.
Got it. Thanks. I'm good for now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
I have a couple of comments or requests, perhaps, and that is I also have some empathy for the neighbors living behind the project because the buildings are going to be higher than their houses, and there's going to be multiple units there as well. And I think this would already happen, but I just want to double check. I think that as they're looking at firming up their plans and deciding on the types of trees that they'll plant along the back for screening, I think you'll involve the landscape architect for the city and include them and get their input on the proposal, and maybe they'll be able to suggest a type of tree that would be a good fit there.
Yeah, the applicant will work with the city's landscape architect and see if there's evergreen trees that comply with the water efficiency landscape ordinance and other water efficiency requirements for landscaping.
Yeah. So for the people in the audience tonight, I'd just like to suggest that if you have any input for the landscape architect, maybe contact Matt Gruber and let him know what types of trees or plants you might think would be a good fit there, and then they could pass that along to the developer and, listen to your input on that topic as a way to try to collaborate a little bit, as Commissioner Mohan was suggesting. And then above and beyond that, I love the idea of having projects be self-parked, and I'm confident in this project that it's not the case. There will be people looking for off-site parking, and it's unfortunate because there really is no legal place for people to park off-site. They shouldn't be parking in Mission Plaza if they're not doing business there. They can't park on Santa Rita. Having said that, as Commissioner Pace indicates, our role here is to determine whether or not the objective standards have been met, and to the best of my knowledge, they have. And so based on that, I'm planning to support this project.
Okay, thank you. So maybe I'll wrap up, and then we can entertain a motion. So I suspect the people in the room can feel some of the frustration that the Planning Commission has over the lack of control and the lack of input we can provide as a city to some of these efforts over time. That's a direct result of what happens at the state level and the mandates that have come down to us that we've worked with over time. That said, the plan we have in front of us, based on all the work, we've worked extensively. I know the city staff has worked really hard on these efforts over time, this one and the many others I've seen over the years, to make sure that we are doing everything exactly the way that we're supposed to, and to try to preserve the character of our city. It is inevitable that there will be impact as these infill projects, these 29 projects, create more density. That is what the state intended, and that's what's going to happen. And so the best we can do is work on the design standards to best help our city preserve what it is as we go through this. But based on the conclusions and the analysis done by the staff, it appears that this project is in compliance. So if we don't have any other comments, we're going to do a motion, and then we're going to do a bio break, and then we'll get to the next one. So do we have any further questions or comments on this one? No? Does someone want to make a motion?
So the motion is for the tentative map.
Do you want to put up the specific things right there? Okay, thank you.
So I motion to approve, as recommended by staff, both the tentative map and the vesting of the tentative map, subject to the conditions of approval stated in Exhibit A.
Thank you. Oh, it occurs to me I didn't say this, so I'll say it. It's always my practice to talk to applicants when they come in. I certainly talk to applicants related to this project and others tonight, and so, I on both sides of the issue, so I certainly have done that here with this project. So, that wasn't with other commissioners, but that's with individuals that were in this room and many others that were not. So, okay, so we've got a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Okay, let's vote.
I
All in
actually have an
favor?
alternate proposal, if that's
sure.
okay with you. I'm not sure if it's illegal, but I actually would like. So I support the proposal because it meets the existing objective design standards. But as part of this, from my side, I would request a couple of things. First, I think the staff needs to look at the objective design standards for height on a priority basis, because we're going to have increasing number of townhome, 3-story or more projects coming as infills between single-family homes. This issue is going to keep on coming up. I think we should get ahead of it. So that's one. The staff should look at the height on a priority basis. And second, I don't know if it's a part of the proposal or a request. Give me some guidance here, Chairperson. I would appreciate if the developer and a couple of the homeowners can actually have an offline conversation and see if there is less angst or a meeting of minds that can happen, so that this project goes through happily and merrily, rather than folks coming every few months before the council or us and registering their frustrations or dissent. So
Yeah, so, I mean, I certainly would encourage, as I always do, applicant and neighbors to talk to each other, but that's not something we can mandate here. Nevertheless, you know, there will be another vote at this at the city council, and so, and then there will be future opportunities as well for folks to weigh in, so harmony is always is a good thing, but that's not within our scope, but I certainly support the sentiment.
So
There's nothing to vote on there. I can't,
Okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. I mean, yeah, what about looking at the objective?
I mean, we'll take that up. Again, we can't vote to change the design standards here. That's something
I'm
we're
not saying
gonna
vote,
have to
just
do.
take a look at them,
Yeah,
revisit the height,
We've made the, so we'll work on it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second, and then maybe let's just, I don't know how we're gonna vote. Do we need a roll call, or let's try it, let's see what happens. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Motion passes
Motion.
4-1.
Okay, all right, so let's take, it's 8:47, let's take a 8-minute break to 8:55 for courtesy break, and then we will restart with item number 6. So this motion passes, it'll go to the city council. Thank you. Okay. All right, welcome back. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the robust feedback and discussion. Obviously, we are the representatives of the city in the efforts to preserve and maintain the character of our city as we go through the inevitable changes that our city faces. So, with that said, let's go on to the next item, which is item 6, which is a housing element update. So just as a quick reminder, again, there's lots of folks in the room that I don't think have been involved in some of this before, but this goes back a couple of years. The housing element we've already referenced this tonight in previous discussions, is part of the process we had to go through in order to comply with the requirements from the state legislature around the housing we must put into the city under law, to put in about 6,000 new units in our city. And so this is a continuation of the efforts that have been going on for the last couple of years. We did receive approval from the state, 2 months ago, and so now we're going through some of the formal follow-up process as a result of that effort. For those of you that have been along for the ride, thank you, and I'm sure more will come of it. And just as we experienced with the last one, we'll see this come up in a number of other projects as well. But this only applies to certain parts of the city, and the rest of the city, the housing element doesn't apply to, and so we'll, proceed as it has in the past. Okay, that was a really long windup, and Eric's going to blow us away. And I'll say again, the staff worked really hard on this and the other projects. So thank you, Eric, and take it away.
Thank you again, Chair Pace, and members of the commission again. Okay, so tonight the commission is being asked to consider making a favorable recommendation to the city council on an application by the city which proposes a municipal code amendment to create a housing opportunity zone, or HOZ district, rezoning 21 housing opportunity sites identified in the 6-cycle housing element to that HOZ district, and then a second municipal code amendment codifying the Objective Design Standards, or ODS, housing sites compliance review process. For some brief background, as Commissioner Pace was so eloquently put, the housing element was adopted by the City Council in January 26th, on January 26, 2023. The council readopted the housing element update on June 20th, 2023, after some non-substantive edits were made pursuant to comments received from the state. Subsequently, the state certified the housing element update on August 25th, 2023. The housing element itself includes programs 1.1 and 1.4, which require the city to maintain the existing zoning of, and also to rezone, i.e. apply additional zoning districts to appropriate areas or sites, also known as housing opportunity sites, to allow residential uses to accommodate Pleasanton's share of the regional housing need on all income levels. And state law requires those necessary rezonings to be enacted no later than January 31st, 2024. In response to that, the city is proposing to create the HOZ zoning district within the municipal code and apply that district to all 21 housing opportunity sites identified in the housing element update. The HOZ zoning district would allow residential uses on all 21 housing opportunity sites, but it would not remove the existing zoning districts and the associated permitted or conditionally permitted uses of those existing zoning districts on those sites. The application of the HOZ district would make the zoning for all 21 housing opportunity sites consistent with the current general plan designation for each site, and which was updated with the adoption of the housing element update. Please refer to Exhibit B, which outlines the full parameters of the proposed HOZ district. The city also proposes to establish the housing site compliance review process to help streamline the review of residential projects on the housing opportunity sites while ensuring compliance with the city's ODS. The housing site compliance review process outlines the specific application submittal requirements and anticipated review and processing timelines for applicants, and will enable staff to provide specific guidance on the submittal and review of development applications and projects, thereby reducing incomplete application submittals. Under the housing site compliance review process, all residential projects on the 21 housing opportunity sites would be subject to review and determination by either the zoning administrator or the planning commission, depending on the number of units, and it identifies the standards set forth in the ODS related to, the related environmental mitigation measures and other applicable objective standards established by the city that all projects would be required to adhere to. Please refer to Exhibit T, which outlines the full parameters of the proposed housing site compliance review process. Based on this information, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, 1, find the proposed text amendments and the HOZ zoning district rezonings are consistent with the general plan and specifically the housing element. 2, adopt a resolution recommending approval of cases P23-0607 and P23-0608 to the City Council, subject to the draft text amendments and zoning unit maps provided in Exhibits B through D. And 3, forward cases P23-0607 and P23-0608 to the City Council for consideration and decision. And that will conclude my presentation, and be happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Eric. Any questions for Eric? Ken? No? Commissioner Mohan? Okay. Vice Chair?
No questions.
Commissioner Jane?
I have a question on Exhibit B. So in Exhibit B, that's on page 3. That's Article 2, A2C. Where we say have all residential uses either occupy at least 50% of floor area for new construction mixed-use project, or occupy at least 50% of new floor area proposed on housing opportunity site with pre-existing commercial commercial office floor area to be preserved. So I understand the intent. The intent here is if you have a commercial use, that use is preserved, and then we are adding additional entitlement to give you housing as the additional entitlement. When I'm reading this, and it's just my interpretation, may not be accurate, I feel I'm questioning, like, does it open up the same sites which are residential today to mixed-use development? So with this article, are we opening up any sites which are not already commercial to be mixed use?
So this HOZ district is specific to the housing opportunity sites, the 21 sites identified in the housing element update. So no, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I believe the answer is no. It doesn't open up all sites to mixed use. It's strictly the application of this district to those housing opportunity sites.
Yeah, within those sites. So there are, I think, a couple or maybe a few which are already residential. So my reading of this clause, and maybe it need to be clarified, or maybe Larissa, you can help. When you read this, does it give reader an impression that you can now have mixed use on any of these sites?
I see what you're saying. So I think and I'll let Ellen or Larissa jump in, but to me, this provision actually is meant to address those sites that already have some commercial space on them, and if they want to remain mixed use, then we're requiring new floor area to at least 50% of the new floor area for those types of sites to be residential. I don't believe that the intent here is then to allow an all residential project to then become mixed use unless their current underlying zoning already would allow for it. Does
That's correct, Eric. And it's worth noting that the language in 2A and B and C is in state law, and we're required to have those parameters exactly as written here. We have to allow for those things. And it's a way, I think, in state law to say when you have a mixed use, to the extent you might have a mixed use project, the state wants to make sure that you're providing the majority of that project as housing and not just a token amount in a mixed-use project. So that's why that language is there, and it's directly drawn from state law.
So is this copy-paste from?
It is. There's one of the programs in our housing element says we will enact zoning that incorporates this language, and so we've carried it over.
Yeah, I think the intent is good, and
It's
I
not
get the
It's
intent.
not the best written text I've ever read.
Yeah, my reading is slightly, I'm just trying to see if someone can find a loophole and say, hey, now this residential side, I can convert into mixed use.
No, it's what Eric said. So it's intended to actually preserve the residential and not allow for a mixed-use site, for the mixed use to become the dominant, or the commercial to become the dominant use.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
And if it helps Commissioner Jane too, just if you look at the list of sites, I believe there's 2-3 sites that potentially have mixed use as their underlying zoning already. The majority of them do not currently allow mixed use.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Jane. Commissioner Wedge?
None at this time.
Okay. So let's go to questions, comments from the public. I don't know that we have any applicants for this, because this is a zoning, this is a zoning issue. It's a city, it's a city thing.
Yep.
Eric, you want to speak again?
He's got 10 more minutes.
You got 10 more
Got me
minutes?
twice already tonight.
Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
that's plenty.
Turn on the timer, give him 10 minutes. Okay, so let's go to any members of the public who would like to speak. Do we have any cards on this one, Estella?
Yes, we do. First up, we have Stephen Bursley.
Wonderful, thank you, sir. So same rules apply, 3 minutes. Welcome, thank you for being here.
Someone should move that chair. No one's sitting in that row.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you all
evening.
for your time. The proposed municipal code amendment to create a housing opportunity zone, the HOZ, it appears to include at least 4 sites that are currently zoned as commercial properties within the Hacienda Business Park. As a member of the Valencia Homeowners Association, I object to rezoning of these properties and the expectation that any such rezoned properties to residential will be subject to the business park fees, as the previously rezoned community of Valencia was and remains. This agreement was negotiated with the City of Pleasanton in the early 90s and places incremental liabilities and expenses on Valencia and other residential communities that realize no benefits for the monthly dues that serves the interests of commercial properties within the business park. The proposal to rezone the properties within Hacienda Business Park only serves the interests of the business park and the city, while increasing liabilities and expense to the current residential communities that would be encumbered by the agreement that the Valencia HOA and others have and have sought to overturn since the beginning of the development in the mid-90s. In closing, I reject the proposal that will or is being sent to the Planning Commission and seek to discuss a proposal that would meet the needs of the city while renegotiating a fair and equitable agreement to both new and existing residential communities that remain within the boundaries of the Hacienda Business Park.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Adam Lubau.
Good evening. My name's Adam Lubo. I'm a longtime Pleasanton resident. I first want to say thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Thank you kindly. My wife and I moved to Northern California in 1997. We've been residents on Bonita Avenue since 1998, in fact, 25 years ago this month. There are a number, back up just a minute. I work in the home building industry. I am pro-development. The city needs more housing and affordable housing, and I'm supportive of that in the right locations, okay? I appreciate the work that's gone into the plan that you folks have put together, or those your predecessors have put together, and I respect the amount of time and thought process that went into it. There are a number of sites that are on this list that make absolutely good sense, and I'll back up again. I started walking construction sites when I was 5 years old. I studied real estate and urban geography in college. I started my career over 4 decades ago in the home building industry, in market research. I know good sites when I see them, and I know sites that don't make sense for a variety of reasons. So there are, in my opinion, my personal and professional opinion, there are a number of sites on this list that make great sense. There are a number of sites, a few, that don't make any sense whatsoever for a variety of reasons. So myself and a number of my surrounding homeowners in the Bonita Avenue area are very disappointed that the St. Augustine site is on this list. I'm going to try to speed it up here. The surrounding homeowners are strongly opposed to that site. We purchased our homes knowing that the site was not zoned for that use, for high-density residential development. The Bernal Avenue is already severely impacted by excessive traffic, which has only gotten worse with the various apps that encourage cut-through traffic through our town. Nothing's been done to address that cut-through traffic, I might add. That site is landlocked. There's not a street fronting that site that is currently undeveloped. The exits on Bonita are already impacted. Angela exit is impacted. So the site out on Bernal is blind. I would encourage the development of the Kiewit site across the street as a transit-oriented development. Put a train station there for the ACE train. Makes perfect sense. I fail to understand how the Old Castle site failed to make it onto this list. There's many acres over there that could be developed. There are many other sites that I would encourage you to take a look at and take the St. Augustine site off the list. There are sites within the Hacienda Business Park. I'm not familiar with what was discussed, and so I would have to defer to this gentleman on that. But within Cole Center, within areas bounded by Hop Yard, Johnson, Owens Drive, Franklin Drive, Stone Ridge, Ream Drive. In closing, I'd like to reiterate, myself and my neighbors are strongly opposed, and I would highly encourage the commission, with all due respect, to please reconsider that site for a number of reasons and find substitute sites that make sense. That site does not make any sense whatsoever. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Timothy Krukiel.
I want to make sure I get the full 3 minutes here.
Thank you, sir.
All right, hold on one second. Am I good?
You're good to go.
Okay. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Tim Krukiel. I'm a resident of the Valencia Hacienda Homeowners Association. I'm also the board president of the Valencia Hacienda Homeowners Association, 178 single-family residential planned unit development in the Hacienda Business Park. If rezoning the housing is granted to the Hacienda Business Park, all existing and new residential should be excluded from the de-annexation agreement of the Hacienda Business Park and classified as residential properties. Specifically, sites on the list that Eric Lucchini has provided to me, Sites 6, Sites 7, Sites 8, and Sites 29. Today, each residential property and dwelling pays a monthly sum of $57.74 monthly, $692.88 annually. This is in addition to property taxes. As a Valencia resident, and the association pays approximately $10,278 monthly, $123,336 annually to the Hacienda Business Park. Our monthly HOA dues, excluding the business park fees to operate our association, are $74. We pay for our own streets, roads, street signs, street lights, everything that encompasses the HOA. Planning Commission, if you rezone the sites I specified and build in the Hacienda, then all residential dwellings should be removed from the Hacienda Business Park fees as part of the de-annexation agreement established in the 90s. corporations of the Board of Hacienda governing affordable housing and existing homeowners. Does that make sense to you? You can't make this up. Building affordable housing in the business park, I'm pro-housing. I build all the housing in the business park. I don't know if you guys know this, but the president of the Hacienda Business Park, James Paxton, doesn't even call it the business park. He calls it Hacienda because it has been not, corporations are not moving there. They're moving to the mall. So fair and equality for all residents. I will leave the Hacienda budget and the proposed increase for review to the Planning Commission. I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you.
Who can I leave the documents with?
Just hand it over to Estella and Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Carolyn Baranuskas.
Hi, it's actually Baranauskis, but everybody has trouble with it. It's very phonetic, in Lithuanian. I came to Pleasanton in 1988, and I thought I discovered paradise. I really did. As I came off the 680 freeway onto Burnell, and I crossed to the west side over the Burnell Arroyo Bridge, and I saw the ridgelands in front of me. I saw the beautifully rural foothill road, and I thought I'd arrived, my perfect home. And in 1988, I thought I was going to stay forever. I thought I would retire here, which I have. I grew my family here. The whole works. It's been wonderful. I went to the band reviews. I had a daughter in the band. I proudly went downtown and watched her march. We live right next to the orchard. That's part of the beauty of the West Side. The West Side has a rural ambiance that the rest of Pleasanton doesn't always have. It's unique. It's got that rural flavor. Looking at the ridgelands and being next to the Merritt property, the orchard, has been an undescribable experience for me. All the Foothill Knolls, Foothill Farms, Pearly Court people. We love that orchard. We adore that orchard. It's a buffer against everything else that's happening on the west side. The traffic at Foothill is outrageous. We can't even get out of our neighborhood at pickup and drop-off times. If we had to get out, we couldn't get out of our neighborhood. Honestly, it's that bad. And you want to build more homes. Why? And you want to build homes on the Merritt property. I just don't understand it. I have fought for this. We fought against any development on that property twice already. I marched around the neighborhood. Everyone's on board for not building on that property. Have you ever seen crows trying to break the walnuts? How intelligent they are. They sit on the posts and they drop them from the light towers over and over again, the light posts. And also they're smart enough to realize that if they put them in the way of a traffic car on Muirwood South, the cars will run over them and break them. And they wait. They plant them there and wait till the cars break them.
Thank you.
And how about a gray heron
We're at time.
catching a ground squirrel?
Thank you.
Have you ever seen that?
Thank you.
And I'm telling you, for a group that treasures its neighborhoods, you're blowing it.
Thank you.
Because Foothill Knolls, Foothill Farms, everyone I've talked to is really against this all the way, all the way. You're taking part of our heart out on West Side. You truly are.
Thank you.
Robin Neal.
Hi there. I just want to echo what Carolyn said, basically. I'm not going to drag it out here, but the traffic on Foothill Road, it's unbearable. Southbound 680 in the morning, as everybody knows, especially if you drive it, is just gridlock. So the alternative route is Foothill Road. And it's difficult now to get out of there, adding 111 homes with 2 to 3 cars per home, possibly. It's just going to add way more traffic to the neighborhood. The Merritt property is very special. It's county property. It's just its own little enclave. And I know we've done this battle before, 98, and we did it again, and now it's come up again. I just ask that you reconsider adding that into the rezoning. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Patrick Byrne.
Commissioners, planners, others here, thank you. You're going to hear a little bit more of this story here. Bear with me. I appreciate you guys just listening. That's a big part of it. And I also want to, nod to the California compliance that you guys are struggling with now. Having said that, hopefully I can get this in under 3 minutes. Thank you for the chance to share my story and the impact that developing Merritt properties will have on us and thousands of other Pleasanton residents. I do want to acknowledge Commissioner Gaidos and Pace's comments regarding California's enforcement of housing mandates for Pleasanton. My name is Patrick Byrne. Today, I'd like to address a pressing issue that concerns Merritt properties in our community, particularly regarding the destruction of vital habitat for wildlife, increased congestion on Foothill Road due to 680 cut through, and the impact on the cherished hills that enhance the quality of our lives. First, let's consider the destruction of the habitat. The Merritt properties are a refuge for coyotes, deer, bobcats, squirrels, crows, and countless other species. As development encroaches on their natural habitat, these creatures are pushed to the brink of survival, disrupting the delicate balance of our local ecosystem, and unique and irreplaceable biodiversity of this area is at risk. We must consider the consequences of our housing decisions on these creatures. I can't tell you the delight I have of hearing the coyotes at night or seeing them in the morning, even though they could threaten our cat. We take flashlights out at night and watch the beady eyes until they all run away. We have seen bobcats and walnuts, cranes, and are visited annually by crows. We laugh at our dog when he barks at the low-flying turkey vultures. The other day, a hawk landed on our fence and the squirrels chirped at it as their danger signal. In contrast, the 680 cut-through and the nearby high school are increasingly congested, making it more challenging for residents to navigate their own community. The additional housing developments will exacerbate this problem, leading to longer commutes, increased traffic, and safety concerns, especially at the narrow part at the top of the hill. The reasons many of us chose to live in this area are being eroded by unchecked growth. The hills surrounding our community are not just scenic, they provide an unparalleled quality of life. These natural landscapes offer solace, peace, and the chance to escape the hustle and bustle of daily life. Their preservation enhances our mental and physical well-being, especially in times that we live in now, with wars in the world and in our culture. Yet, if we continue down this path of unchecked development, we risk losing these vistas and the countless benefits they bring to our lives. Lastly, we must address the housing decision that many of us relied on when purchasing our residences. We were told that a housing cap would prevent further construction in the Merritt properties, ensuring the preservation of the area we hold dear. The breach of this promise erodes trust and leaves us questioning those who make the decisions. I know you guys aren't always those guys. In conclusion, we find ourselves at a critical juncture in the preservation of the Merritt properties. It's imperative that we consider the long-term impact of our choices on the environment, wildlife, traffic congestion, and the cherished views that enhance our quality of life. Let's figure out how to protect the very qualities that brought us here in the first place and ensure a sustainable, vibrant future for our community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Samantha Byrne.
Ooh, this might be your first time. Is this your first time? Okay, this is going to be awesome. You're going to do great. I cannot wait.
Okay, it's just short, so. Hi there, my name is Samantha, and I'm in high school. I just wanted to talk about the possible changes happening with the Merritt property and how it could affect the amazing views we enjoy and our overall quality of life. Those scenic views of untouched nature are at risk of disappearing, replaced by buildings, roads, and rooftops. And it's not just about the views. More traffic, more noise, and just the general busyness of city life are all factors that we need to consider that could make day-to-day life much less peaceful. I'm homeschooled and usually work in our kitchen. More recently, I've been so thankful for the privacy and views that we have. Looking out to the gorgeous walnut trees that are just changing color for the fall is an absolute gift to me, and I would be devastated for that to be torn down just for more houses. I understand what happens, but I hope everyone is aware of the impact that this will have on so many people's lives. Let's do what we can to preserve what we've always known as Pleasanton.
Thank you.
No other speaker cards were received.
Okay, thank you. You want to come up? Okay. Hand the card over there, please, if you would. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Can you just stand, so there's people that are watching online, just get a little closer to the microphone.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I'm speaking about the site 22, the Maria property. So I'm thinking, as everybody, other people saying, the traffic is a big concern because, I send in kids every day from the Foothill High School. Sometimes it's not in the traffic time, still like a lot of traffic. And also I have a big concern because this site in the community, surrounded by the community, like Moorwood and North Drive. So a lot of communities surround this site. So I can imagine like 111 homes constructed over there. So will be, I think a lot of noise or around that area, also traffic, everything. So the school is in the neighborhood. So high school. So I definitely will impact the school, the high school, a lot of kids study over there. So I think will have a big impact also. So construction inside, the site is in a community center, surrounded by the community. So we will have a big impact to the surrounding community. Yeah. So I request, suggest to reconsider about this rezoning issue. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close the public comment portion of item 6, and let's go to comments. I have lost track of who started when, so let's just start with Vice Chair Gatos.
Sure. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I know you all recognize that we're sort of very far down in the process of where we are, and I can echo the sentiments of everyone that came regarding the Merritt property. My wife grew up on South Muirwood, right at the corner there. My father lives on the other side of Muirwood. I have many friends who went to Foothill High School, and I grew up playing in those orchards and being in there, and it will break my heart to see that developed. And trying to take a left onto Muirwood at the top of South Muirwood Drive is, you're really taking your life into your own hands. So I hope at some point with the increased traffic, they do something about that left-hand turn, or we consider do something that left turn. So I just wanted to thank the folks that came out tonight. And for the gentleman that came from downtown on Bonita, my grandfather lives on Bonita, I get it. St. Augustine was one of the last ones. It was right on the cusp of including it or not including it. I don't know how realistic it is for that actually to be developed or not, but for the record, there was other ideas I had about different sites that should be more zoned to keep that one off, as well as the Pleasanton School District property on First Street. So I echo those sentiments, and I understand it's landlocked, and there's maybe a couple ways to put some streets into there and funnel the traffic onto Bernal, which I think at that point might work. But I appreciate everyone coming down, and don't quite know what to say about the HOA. in the Hacienda Business Park. I don't know that's completely within our purview, but I would recommend that in approving this, that city council take a look at that issue, because it doesn't necessarily seem fair if you're not getting the benefits from being forced into an HOA. But I don't, we didn't take that issue up before as a planning commission, and I think the council should look at it if they need to zone it differently to address that issue. I think that's something that needs to be in consideration. So perhaps I could ask staff to just note that and bring that to the city council's attention when they're looking at the final approval for all of this, so we don't miss that important issue for those folks. I don't pretend to understand all the issues that you're talking about. I haven't seen your documents, but it sounds like an interesting issue. So I would suggest we take a look at that before proceeding. So those are my comments. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Jane?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Gaidos, and appreciate everyone who came out. To be honest, we were hoping for a big turnout last December, January, when we were shortlisting these sites. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of feedback. And I think I have a question. The Merit property, what's the current zoning for that property? You know?
I believe the current zoning is ag. Bear with me for a moment here. Yeah, oh, sorry, yes. Unincorporated, we do not have a pre-zone on that, so it's in the county, so it's just unincorporated currently.
But it might be worth noting that our general plan does designate it low-density residential and has for many years.
So it's already, as per our general plan,
Correct.
listed as low-density residential?
Yeah, pending annexation to the city.
Yeah, I think there are fair points, and any site which we pick will have those pros and cons. I can't imagine any site to be non-controversial. Like, there are going to be always controversies around any particular site. We had a very interesting criteria on selecting the sites. It was not easy. Like, where do you find an interest from the developers to actually develop, have the site large enough where you can have this kind of developments? And it's been a tremendous work by the city staff to propose these sites. And we did consider interest from the developers, correct? And we do have interest on the Merit site from developers. So that was one of the key criteria. And it's kind of state mandate. They required us to see something which will be built, not just something which we are going to mark on paper as rezoned for residential. They actually want these sites to be fully built. And I hear a lot of opinions, and rightly so. I don't know if this is the right time to change our trajectory. The sites have been shared with the state authorities. SCD has the list, correct? We had a few cycles back and forth with them. It was not easy to get their approval. I think pulling off any site from this list, not a particular site, but any site, would require us to pick another site, have the interest from the developers. We have to follow the whole public comment process. So it's not the beginning of this. It's like towards the tail end, when the proposal in front of us is actually to have general plan amended for these particular sites. Yeah, so I think I agree with a lot of comments, but it's towards the tail end, not the beginning of this discussion. I just want everyone to understand that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wedge?
I grew up in town and played in that orchard, even when I wasn't supposed to. But my husband is a heritage family, and his family donated the land for St. Augustine Church. So a lot of these areas are tough. But I do recognize what the state has mandated on us. And I agree with what Commissioner Jane has said, that we need to have sites where a developer will come and develop. I wish we had more land. I wish we had a perfect spot or location. I just wanted to share that. It's a tough decision, but I think staff has worked as hard as they could to find what they felt was the best location for all the criteria.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
We got this packet late last week, and then there was some supplemental information sent by email showing the traffic patterns for all of these sites. And I found that absolutely fascinating because if I read it correctly, it looked very clear to me that the lowest traffic areas by far are in Hacienda Business Park. If you look at the sites in Hacienda Business Park, much, much lower traffic than all of the other sites. You know, we've heard a lot of discussion tonight about concerns about traffic in some of these other locations. And so conceptually, I would really like to see us focus on trying to solicit and see if we can get property owners in the business park to consider nominating their properties for the housing element. We'll be required to add sites due to no net loss, you know, as projects come forward. And I think that's an ideal location. I didn't fully understand the homeowners and fees issues, but encourage staff to review that as well too, just to make sure that we're treating homeowners in that area equitably, you know, compared to other areas of the city. So, you know, a lot of what we talked about tonight's kind of heart-wrenching and discouraging, and the one kind of antidote or offsetting factor for me is the potential to develop other sites in the business park where traffic is low and buildings are already tall and probably don't have a lot of issues about wildlife and other concerns and traffic that we've talked about relative to some of these other sites that our neighbors have brought their concerns forward with us tonight. So appreciate if staff could maybe consider that kind of as a longer term strategy, is to think about how we can develop more interest in the business park. Might be good for Pleasanton too, because as there's less commercial within cities, many cities, San Francisco, Pleasanton, other cities, might be best opportunity for, you know, generating tax revenue. So thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Ken. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Mohan, please.
So the site is a low-density development zone site right now, the Merit property. So I've been, you know, listening and then participating in these conversations, right, with you. Sometime I was sitting that side on some other issues. And there is the state mandate, right? So that's want to be very clear on that. And these properties were listed. They were, I guess, there was publishing of the data of the various sites. They were ranked. Public views were called for. So pretty long and extensive process was followed, which I participated in. And I think these sites have been shared, as Commissioner Jen said, with the state. And these, I believe, form part of the state's approval for us. And going forward, it's going to be, I mean, nothing is impossible. Going to be very difficult taking off sites because the state actually has been worried about the cities playing games with them, with the state, and they've kind of boxed the cities into, like, you can't just pick and choose and, you know, put it up when you need to and then take it away when you don't have to, kind of thing. So I think it's going to be difficult, but I also want to, in my personal capacity, share, you know, there's a the Ironwood property, it's right here, it's down this side. It's a beautiful complex, part of it is a retirement home, single-story homes, beautiful homes. Part of it is, for the younger families. Now, for the longest time, the citizens of the area felt that there should not be any development around there. Good, right? But now suddenly, as a result of properties not being built for a long time, maybe 8, 10, 12, 15 years, suddenly there's a big vacant land that is just sitting there. And now with the new state mandates, as some of you heard in the previous conversation, now they're allowed to build 3-story homes. And now suddenly the folks who have the single-family homes with a single story are saying, what the heck just happened here? And because now they're going to have people on the 3rd floor looking at the single-story homes. In my personal view, homes will get built in Pleasanton. There is no way out because of the state mandate. I think low-density development is probably the best we can hope for, because other properties, or if we take it off, after 5 years or 10 years, I can promise you this will be a 3-story townhome development that you guys will be fighting against. So my suggestion is look at the options. All of us have heard the other people complaining about the height of the homes and the density of the home around them. And I think it's probably the best viable option for all of us in Pleasanton to have low-density single-family homes. That's my view about the density and the building of homes in that area. The issue about the traffic is something actually I've wrestled with personally, because I live on the other side of Pleasanton, and 84, when we bought the property, there was a nice, widening road in which you drove very carefully at night because deer and foxes would cross that thing. Now it's a freeway, and I've been only here 10 years. It's a freeway, and it's tough. It's scary making a left turn into the complex because cars are flying past there. So change is happening all around us. It's not the traffic from Pleasanton. Whether Foothill or 84, the traffic is coming from cities around us, whether it's Dublin, whether it's the Central Valley. I mean, if we drove past, I went a few weeks ago to Central Valley, they are building like there's no tomorrow over there. Every available lot has bulldozers and cranes, and houses are coming up there. We're going to get hit with traffic in this city because we are sitting at the junction of 580, 680. I think we actually have much bigger planning things to think about as a city, because this is going to be the center of the Bay Area in a few years. There's going to be traffic here. So Foothill, the traffic that you see, most of it is not local. It's only going to get worse, unless Chairperson Pace has one more brilliant idea to fix it. I will wait.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I have a question. So, and this is related to what Commissioner Mohan just said. So I'm looking at the chart which has density and the allocation of units in different areas. The Merit property is actually above moderate income. It is, as per this table, is supposed to have 90 units. If you leave it vacant for a long enough time, that number is going to only go up. So people don't realize this, and that's what we are seeing just now before the prior presentation. We have a lot which had a hotel. It was never developed for a long time or redeveloped for a long time. And now everything around it got developed. and the density has only gone up. It has not come down. So lots which remain undeveloped, they also pose a different kind of risk. So right now we're complaining about trees and the orchards. Like, we'll be hearing different kinds of complaints. We'll be hearing about, hey, I have a single family and there's a 3-story unit coming behind me. So there's this trade-off, which Commissioner Mohan also brought up. So look at the list if you haven't looked at the complete list, and you can get a sense of whether you want to approve the single family there today, or you want to wait for a future time when something even more dense comes there. So that's always a trade-off.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Eric, can you maybe just spend a minute and talk about how each of these sites, however, the zoning ends up working, how we think about traffic relative to those sites? I think that's probably worth a quick conversation. When we are putting new homes or, residences in any one of these locations, how do we think about, and how does the city kind of figure out traffic relative to those new residences? Oh, are we going to pass it over to Director Clark? All right.
Yeah, I was more,
I didn't
a
see
little bit
Mike
more involved
Desano, so I
in
wasn't
the
sure where to go.
process,
So, all right.
housing element process than Eric. But we did analyze traffic impacts from the development of all of these sites. Actually, a larger number of sites, in fact, than ended up being on the final list. So we looked at those in terms of their impacts on traffic volumes, on level of service at key intersections, which is the delay that happens. But that was a broad, we call programmatic traffic analysis. When every one of these projects comes forward, we require them to do a site-specific traffic review. So we look more in depth and detail at things like traffic movements in and out of the site, turns, close by intersections, safety and visibility sightlines, things like that. So that analysis is conducted when a particular development project moves forward on one of our sites. We're both back-checking it against our prior environmental analysis, but also making sure there's no site-specific issues that we've missed. So that happens for every site, and we require traffic mitigations at that time if needed to offset any impacts.
Okay, thank you. So maybe in conclusion, I'll just make some comments and then we'll discuss a motion. So the process we're in, as we've kind of talked about maybe ad nauseum now to this group, is one that the state mandated for us. That's it came down, and we have the great fortune of getting to sit in front of you and try to defend the decision. That's a difficult proposition, but nevertheless, here we are. So the best we can offer is we have gone through a pretty extensive process to try to gather in as much feedback as we can and try to make this as low impact on the city. One of these sites is almost literally in my backyard. It's 1,001 feet away. I had it specially measured so I could sit here and talk to you about it. So I understand deeply the personal impact that this is going to have on our community. I'm raising third-generation Pleasantonians. I get it. It's not easy, but nevertheless, we have to do something as the state mandates. The state has now passed this list, so we get the good fortune of now having to execute on what the state has demanded of us. So we will do that. You will have other opportunities. The fact that these get zoned doesn't mean anything's going to happen on the site. You will need a developer, and you'll need someone to work with the landowner in order to get whatever's going to happen on that site done. So I would encourage you to continue to engage with your neighbors, or whomever they may be, in at least in the case of the Merritt property, it sounds like it's the county. Engage with them to try to impact that as best and as much as you possibly can. And if you have the means and you can buy the site yourself, then you would have absolute control. But the reality is that there is a limited amount of what we can do here, and we've worked very hard to try to maintain that. You heard us tonight talk about, are there other changes we can make to the design standards, and we will certainly look at that. But that said, we have the list we have to do what we have to do. Because of what the state has required of us. And so we will, do our best. But that's not the end of the story, and it doesn't mean anything's necessarily going to happen with your site. So please continue to engage with your neighbors. So I think that we've all said it. You I think have a sense clearly of how this commission stands on it. But here we are. So let's entertain a motion. Can you put it back up, please, Eric? Thank you. And while it's getting up, I'll just comment for the record, great job. I knew you were going to crush it. You did a great job. Welcome to public speaking. You should do it in high school. All right. Although I know you said you were homeschooled. I was listening. Okay. So do we have a motion on this one?
I'll move to recommend what the conclusions and recommendations suggested by staff as written on this slide.
And I'll second.
Okay, any competing motions? No? Okay. I think I know how this is going to go, so let's just do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay,
So we're gonna-
motion passes unanimously.
All right, thanks. We're going to close item 6. Thank you to everyone who engaged with this. You're free to stay, those of you in the audience, you're free to stay for the rest of these items, but these are, there's no more public comment. So thank you this evening for your help and for your time. And thank you, as always, to Eric and to all those that engaged, Melinda and others, in the process. As always, we welcome and encourage feedback from the city individually and in forums like this to best help our community as we proceed. So let's move on to item number 7, which is reports from meetings attended. Let me start with Commissioner Mohan. Do you have any reports here? No. Okay, Commissioner Morgan?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Wedge?
None.
Commissioner Jane?
I did attend the committee on bike and pedestrian. There's a proposal which was discussed about improving the Sunol Boulevard interchange on 680. It's a long drawn process. I was surprised just to get the funding. It takes 5 to 6 years, and we have to collect funding from so many places, and even then we are only halfway there. So, but that was the highlight of that meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Gatos?
Nothing to report.
I don't have anything either. Okay, we'll close 7. 8, Actions City Council, Director Clark.
Thank you. Just a couple of actions to report involving giving and receiving of money. The city approved a loan to Tri-Valley Reach to construct an accessory dwelling unit for their special needs population. So that project will move forward. And then the council also voted to accept $7.3 million in grant from the Alameda County Transportation Commission to support the West Las Positas improvements project. So,
awesome.
Good news there.
Thank you. 9, future planning calendar, back to you.
Sure.
Ooh, Melinda, all right.
Save the best for last.
All right, best, well, I'm not going to say that, but we saved a good one for last.
Yes. So no second meeting for November, so happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you back for the next meeting, December 13th, and we will be bringing back the 2207 Martin Avenue. This was the item to establish development standards and a tennis court, and for reconfirmation of the conditions of approval as for further discussions between the property owner and the neighbors. So we're going to bring that back to the Planning Commission
That's the one where
for
I
a
had them
short
negotiating.
discussion. Short
6 and 8
discussion.
feet.
All right.
And then also we have the end of year kind of routine duties, electing chair, vice chair for next year, setting the meeting dates for 2024, and also selection of subcommittee representatives.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any matters initiated by committee member? Oh, Commissioner Rohan is excited for this one. Okay, let's go. Why don't you
Today I'm
start,
on
since
fire,
you're
man.
kicking me under the table?
Exactly. And I just actually wanted to get Director Clark, did you have any update for us on that Alameda County project from Ironwood? We've exchanged emails, and I think I responded that saying that if the CEQA
So, so the question was, the county had issued a grading permit for some remedial or corrective grading on the site. So a question was raised about whether or not they had done environmental review for that project. Per the permit, that project is not associated with the construction of the residential development. That's still going through its own approval process with the county, has not yet been approved. The CEQA document has not yet been published for it. We did reach out to the county to get some confirmation on that one question about whether or not there had been any environmental analysis prior to issuance of the grading permit. I don't believe we've heard back at this point, so we can follow up again.
Yeah,
We said that end of last week.
I got pinged by a couple of these guys, so just want to let them know
Mhm.
what the update is. But that's strange. How can, there's an extensive environmental review process. If you want to build a house, they've flattened the whole thing down over there. They've taken every
Right.
single blade of grass, all the
So
inhabited things.
Yeah,
they're all gone.
the county is subject to follow the same CEQA laws that the city is.
Right,
So
yeah.
if there is a trigger for requiring any kind of CEQA review, the county should have done it. It's possible the project was exempt for some reason under CEQA, and so we've asked for them to confirm
Okay.
what their CEQA analysis
All right.
was.
Got it, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
Tonight was difficult for me because I didn't want to approve the Tri-Valley project, but given that it was based on whether or not, our decision was based on whether or not it met the objective standards, I had to approve it. I had to vote for it. And so I think, what do I do as these issues come up with more housing element projects over the next year or two? And the only way I can think of to get ahead of it is to make sure that we have the objective standards that we're all comfortable with. And so I have a proposal that I'd like other commissioners to think about. Let everyone know if you support this. I think that for the first few of these housing element projects, each time we finish one, I'd like to suggest that staff do an internal, informal learning look back, ask themselves, are there any things we wish were different about the objective standards now that we've been through this process for a site? And then potentially report out then to the Planning Commission whether or not you would recommend or be interested in any changes to the objective standards. In this case, with Tri-Valley, the review might be related to parking,
height and
height,
parking.
and setbacks. And we wouldn't necessarily be, trying to make changes to the standards each time, but we would be maybe compiling a list of things and at appropriate time, maybe tweaking the standards so that we're actually having some influence on the outcome rather than just approving things that meet the current standards. So at least that way, I feel like we would be having an impact on the way projects are coming forward and getting developed in Pleasanton. So I'm interested in hearing feedback from others related to that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think there was an objective design standard issue with the Tri-Valley Inn. I think it was, maybe we should have zoned it for something that should have been 2 stories, rather than 3. I think that would have been more consistent with the neighborhood and the houses behind it. Thinking back, I wish we had done that, but, we'll file that under the mistakes we didn't know we were making category, which I'm sure there's more to come. But, it just seems, I didn't like the fit, but I don't know that the ODS would have done anything about that. I think it was a density issue. As soon as it was, we allowed them to build that many units, they were going to build them 3-story. So I don't, but I share your sentiment that we could take a look at it. I don't know that it would have made a difference in that particular case, but yeah.
So I think
And the look back could be a little more comprehensive. It wouldn't have to be just the standards. And maybe the conclusion would be we wouldn't change anything, in spite of maybe not being perfect or ideal. Maybe we're still think that the standards we have are as good as they can be, all things considered. I guess I'm just suggesting we consciously think about that each time we do a project.
Yeah, I'll say this, when we got those and you guys had to put them together as fast as you did in the middle of the housing element, it was, I didn't have time to go through it, the whole thing. I don't know how anyone did. We did things I didn't even realize, like 50% of new houses had to have an ADU, and city council caught that and it's like, that's kind of strange. So I think we do need to take looks at it as it goes on, but unfortunately, it's just going to be situations where the issues get forced onto us by future projects, so. But I share your sentiment, and I'm supportive of that, and you know, to the extent you guys want to do an internal review, I'm all for it, so.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I also agree with both of you, commissioners, and, you know, keeping, if we needed to have 3 stories, why not digging down and having them go into a basement? You know, or put parking underneath. And then we have 3 levels, but it's really only showing 2, you know, from the street level. I mean, just ideas. I know that's a cost, you know, very costly, and developers won't like that, but there's possibly other ways to make things more attractive.
Yeah, so if I can on this one. So either, you know, there's like a state level, like a best practices, or country level best practices. Otherwise, I don't think it's possible for the staff to figure out or in advance of every possible eventuality that's out there. That's just the nature of how things work. We do the best we can, and we apply it to the real world, and this stuff shows up. I think having said that, I do, so you can break the standards into like, or the complaints or the issues into 2 buckets, right? One is inside the property itself, too crowded, not enough parking, so those kind of complaints. And second is the neighbors complaining that, you know, this is going to block my son, you know, something else. And I think given the increased heights standards that are coming in, we're going to see a lot more of these issues pop up. So maybe, you know, from this learning, a change of, you know, when a property abuts a single-family home, is there a different criteria that needs to be adopted, at least for the homes that are at the periphery versus homes that are inside the property? I think there's something that does need to be thought about, because otherwise every new housing is just going to be just painful for neighbors, right? And yeah.
Little feedback that you wanted to provide?
Sure, and good points. I mean, we do have some of those standards in the ODS already, specifically Tri-Valley Inn and then
St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth. I always want to say St. Eaton for St. Elizabeth. And yes, we also do have a running list. I don't have the items off the top of my head, but to Commissioner Morgan's point, we are learning with the first round of housing element projects. We do have a few others that are going to be coming to you in the next 6 months. So we staff would like to bring some of those items back to you. And if there are other particular ones that come up, especially when we bring the projects forward, then we can add those to the list.
Yeah, I think you made a great point that when we were developing the standards, you can't anticipate every single thing. Every site's a little different. Every adjacency is a little different. There's actually only 2 sites that have that condition of being next to directly abutting single family, and one of them is Tri-Valley Inn. And so we did attempt to build some standards in that were intended to help mitigate. Perhaps they didn't go far enough. But the majority of our sites actually have relatively less impactful, I think, adjacencies. So
there's only 2 that border existing
I'm
neighborhoods.
hopeful we won't see quite as much
that was one
of the concern that we're seeing here. But to Melinda's point, yeah, it's a living document, right? We always learn every time we review a project, we're like, oh, we didn't think about that, or someone proposes some interpretation, and we're like, oh, that wasn't what we were thinking. So it is always a good exercise to go back and revisit and fine-tune what you have.
Yeah, and not to belabor the point, but other cities probably are seeing much more volume of such projects. So I don't know which is a good city to talk to.
I think community standards vary a lot as well. And I think, you know, sometimes people look at projects across the freeway and they say, we would never want that in Pleasanton. And so, you know, they have to be kind of localized, I think, a little bit. But yes, there are some best practices, but they do have to be quite thoughtful about our local community needs as well.
Do we have access to consultants or any funding to help us tweak the standards, or are we burdened to do that internally?
No, we actually have an ongoing relationship with Van Meter Williams Pollock, who helped us draft the standards, so they are available to us as a resource. And actually, we've talked to them about continuing to engage to help to do exactly this kind of review and help us with implementation and various other things, so.
Would it be a fair ask to just ask, say, in an upcoming meeting, if staff could come back with an agenda item for us to indicate whether or not you're satisfied with how the standards worked for the case of the Trail Valley Inn, or
Yeah, I
whether there were areas you wanted to look at to consider for future change?
I think our recommendation would probably, we have, how many projects right now? At least 3 that are on housing element sites, and I think between those, 3, 4 test cases, including Tri-Valley Inn, we will have a lot of learnings. So rather than coming back short-term, I think we might want to say, give us 6 months, and then we will have learned a lot more and can have a better, more holistic discussion rather than doing it so piecemeal.
I'm sorry I'm breaking my promise to you, Chairperson Pace. But going forward, is it possible that we stop this in lieu of payments from the developers?
So we're actually close to bringing a contract to council for starting the study of the update of our inclusionary zoning ordinance and update of our impact fees and in lieu housing fees. So that process is going to take about 6 to 9 months, starting in January, and that will be an opportunity for us to talk about those sorts of policy questions. There are some limitations of law about having to allow for certain alternative compliance. You can't necessarily mandate in every case that the units get built, but we can have certainly more stringent criteria and things that strongly, because one of the issues that we see is that our fees are set at too low of a level right now.
Yes.
It's always cheaper to pay the
Yes.
fee than to build the units.
Yeah.
And so if the option is there to do it, developers will, and our
Of course.
IZO allows for it. So tightening that up is something we really want to look at in the update, and that's coming
I'm
very
glad
soon.
that's on your list, too.
Yes.
because That's something
It's-
I've
it's
been
a- it's a
hoping we
priority
could
for us to do
tackle.
that. Yep.
All right, anyone else?
I was going to suggest, do we plan to have any cocktail with the planning commission and the staff?
'Tis the season.
This is the holiday season.
The holiday party?
I think Commissioner Bohan's the social chair. Duly appointed.
Well, seeing that I drink tea and coffee, you guys don't want me to be your
That's okay.
your social,
I can give you company with the
All
cup
right.
of tea.
Can be, yeah, can be.
Everyone's welcome, any day to
When
my
we-
house
usually what
for the
we-
party.
Usually what we did was we would have one of these and we'd roll over to McKay's or something downtown afterwards, but since we're not, I don't know where to roll now. I don't think the transfer station is where we want to hang out.
Yeah,
Although
we're
it's
we're kind
a
of
great
far
benefit
from-
to our city,
far
it is
from,
not a place I want to hang out.
You can go
at
to the
night.
saloon. on
Wh-
the
When are
way.
when are we back at City Hall?
Is December 13th going to be?
I believe meetings are here through the end of the year, at
Okay.
least, yeah.
What's
You could
December
try
13th?
Sunshine, it's right down
Yeah.
the street.
I know.
Yeah, Sunshine Saloon, I love it.
When does the saloon is right there, over by the axe throwing place? What does the 13th look like agenda-wise?
Just Martin Avenue and those routine
Oh,
items,
so
so it
it's-
should be a
it should be
fairly
short.
short.
Maybe we should just
short-
aim to do
well,
something after
maybe.
that.
although
All right.
Martin Avenue.
Well, that'll be tentative. All are invited. All right. I think I don't have anything, so let's adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.